Yin representing Hong Kong, China. Lee Chun-yin Jason from Hong Kong, China. Thomas Edward Reagan from Australia. Yu Xingping from Hong Kong, China. Lucas Mercado, Brazil. Kwong Yat Nam from Hong Kong, China. Pasquale Zazzulo from Italy. Joshua Brown from USA. Luis Felipe Loureiro from Brazil. Luke Ellis from United States of America. Lu Qing Shun from Chinese Taipei. Paul Niederberger from Switzerland. Hong Yanping from Chinese Taipei. Yu Xingyuan from Chinese Taipei. Chang Lok-hei from Hong Kong, China. Gabrielle Metalgo from USA. Ho Yo-wei from Chinese Taipei. Mati Kusobek from Czech Republic. Manado Gavioli from Brazil. William Yan from Hong Kong, China. Dalen Gravini from USA. Bailey Armstrong from Australia. Xin Qinteng Kith from Hong Kong, China. Christian Stryker from Switzerland. Lan Tan Chen from China. Lee Chak Fong Jaden from Hong Kong, China. Rob Wassel from Australia. Zhao Jun Boheng from China. Peng Cha Yue from Chinese Taipei. Franz de Marcelo Leonard from Brazil. Madels Malechi from Brazil. Marcel Skelton from Netherlands. Chen Chen Hin from Hong Kong, China. Strikler Delgado Polo from Mexico. Andrea Villadelli from Italy. Martin Strecker from Czech Republic. Liu Ji Yue from Chinese Taipei. Song Jung-ho from Republic of Korea. Li Shu-cheng from Chinese Taipei. Lam Wai-lok from Hong Kong, China. And we have the ranking the top 8 from the start list of today's competition. We have representing Italy, having World Cup medalist for 3 times, Marcello Grudi. Representing Australia, also World Cup medalist for 3 times, Kyle Lee. Representing Italy, 2022 25 km world champion, Daria Virani. Representing Australia, World Cup medalist for 6 times, Nicholas Lohmann. Representing Italy, World Cup medalist for 7 times, Mario Sensulo. Representing France, also 7 times having World Champions medalist, Marc-Antoine Olivier. Representing Germany, 2024 Paris Olympic silver medalist, Oliver Clement. And representing Hungary, reigning 10 km world and Olympic champion, Krzysztof Raswowski.
So there you have it, the fields for the men's and women's 10 kilometers here in Hong Kong, China. A very warm welcome around the world as we get ready for the continued coverage of the Open Water Swimming World Cup season. There has been, of course, a little bit of a change to today's schedule. The typhoon warning scheduled in for 10:40 a.m. local time. The swimmers are in the water an hour earlier than expected, and as you can see on the screen now, we have our men's field 16 minutes into the race. So it's going to be an interesting day to see how it plays out. You can see the conditions really testing if these athletes open their account in lap 1 of 6. Such an incredible venue, of course, though. The first time we've been back here since 2017, and I'm sure plenty of athletes will be having their eye on top of that podium today. Early on, of course, this is the first lap. We got Delgado of Mexico leading the way, the youngster who was monumental at the recent World Junior Championships in Alghero, Italy. He's out for more here, leading out Marc-Antoine Olivier of France. And the pace is well and truly on here in the first lap. You can see the splits coming from all over this leading group. It really is a battle across the field. But Delgado doing an incredible job in the first lap just to space it out, use his early pace to try and cause some angst and separation in that lead group. But so far, no major breaks outside of the back end of this lead group. We'll see how it plays out. There are some stars in the field today, including, of course, the silver medalist from the recent Paris Olympic Games in Ollie Clement. He'll be tucked in that lead group somewhere up the front, but for now, Delgado doing a fantastic job to lead the way and really putting the hammer down. 17 minutes into this race, we're about to conclude lap 1 of 6 here. Again, sprint points on the line once more, and we know how important those points have been throughout the season. So once again, confirming Delgado leads Olivier, and it looks like Sloman of Australia in that green cap, just pulling up on the inside. In fact, really putting a big effort in as they come down to end lap 1 here. Not long to go. 1,600 meters swum, 18 minutes the time. The pace has been hot in lap 1 as they come through this timing booth. Of course, 6 laps will take them around the course. A last spurt by Marc-Antoine Olivier. I believe, in fact, that might be Thomas Raymond of Australia sitting in second there as they come around the turning can. It is quite a beautiful course out there today. A lot of Australians sitting in that top 5. The first time they've been close to home in a while at that World Cup level. Melechi Straka Giovanni of Brazil rounding out the top 8 as they come through the feed station for the first time. It's important in a race like this. There's a bit of chaos that would have ensued through the... Oh, we'll watch the top of the screen here. Looks like Thomas Raymond electing not to come in for a feed and stay out in the course. He's got a bit of separation here. Raymond certainly one that likes to sit towards the front of the race and use his speed early to make sure that when those bigger names in the field come through in the back end of the race, he's in a position to strike. Training partner of Nick Sloman, of course, up on the Noosa Swim Club, and really a rising star in the Australian open water scene. Just taking a look back to see what ensued through that feeding zone there. But Tommy Raymond out in front, really looking sensational. Took home 3 gold medals at the recent Australian Open Water Swimming Championships, and you can see he's used the winter time in Australia to put some more work in as he leads out this field into lap number 2. Still plenty to swim though, of course, and I'm sure we'll see that fighting pack move through into the shot very shortly. But Delgado was one of those youngsters that was leading the race. We saw Luke Ellis also sitting firmly near the front of that pack. In fact, this is quite a sizable lead here for Tommy. He is a swimmer that if he was able to get some gap from the rest of the field, he would be able to hold on to that for a win. So I wouldn't want that lead group to give Thomas too much space here. All that being said, of course, it's a long way to swim still, and I'm sure Thomas will want to move back to the field to conserve some energy. But that lead group is really whittled down from what we expected it to be in the opening lap. I'm sure the early nerves of the race time changing would have impacted a lot of the athletes in their preparation. So it is not a common instance for these athletes to be placed in a situation where they would have to react so quickly. But I'm sure we'll see the best of them come together. This is our chase group. Thomas Raymond of Australia leading out in front. You can see on the lead there, not quite sure who that is. We'll get an update shortly, but that stroke rate is significantly lower than what we saw for Thomas Raymond out in front of this group. So if you are just tuning in, a reminder that of course the race time was, the start time was changed due to a typhoon warning placed on Hong Kong for 10:40 a.m. this morning. So we'll hope to have our athletes out of the water before 10:40. So we move back to our women's field, also racing at the same time today. 6 laps as well around the same course. And that as well are some incredible names racing within the women's field, including Moesha Johnson of Australia, the recent Olympic silver medalist, Taducci of Italy, noted as the leader on screen at the moment. It is similar to how she loves to race. And Lisa Powell of Monaco sitting forward as well. So no surprises of the 2 names that lead the women's race as they come down to finish off lap 1. This, of course, being the back of our men's field coming through the feeding station. So the conditions will be testing for the athletes today, but a spectacular race venue, of course, here in Hong Kong. The first time we've been back since 2017. And I'm sure a lot of the athletes would be very excited to be racing in what was a stalwart of the open water scene back in the day. We're back in Hong Kong, and the weather, whilst testing, has turned on an absolute show. Beautiful blue water here to showcase our great sport. So you can see on the left of the screen there, the lead female pack coming through to finish off lap 1. We'll get an update on that very shortly as they enter the timing chute. 6 laps, of course, 1.66 kilometers per lap. We had Taducci and Powell leading the way at the end of lap 1. Some incredible scenes here in Hong Kong. 5 laps to come for the women, and we'll get an update on their leading group in a second. Claire Weinstein there on screen. She's one of the ones that we'll be keeping an eye on as we see Jean-Blut, Grimes, Johnson, Gubecka, Weinstein, Jean-Blut again, Crisp, and Spywak. That is a star-studded top 10 leading out the women's 10 kilometers. There are some big names in contention there. Of course, Claire Weinstein, one to keep an eye on after a very impressive showing at the recent World Junior Championships as well. She took home gold in the 7.5 kilometers as well as the 3 kilometer sprint knockout. And Weinstein also took gold back in functional to round out the 2023 World Aquatics Open Water World Cup Series with what was a very dominant performance. Of course, Claire Weinstein, an Olympian for the US pool team in the 200. She's at 154, so by far one of the fastest pool swimmers for the US, and coming across to assert her dominance one more in the open water field. We'll see how she stacks up to the very best that the open water sport has to provide. Johnson just off the pace at the moment. We had a lead change there. Looks like Claire Weinstein, in fact, moving through to the front in that yellow USA cap. We don't see many of them rolling around. Katie Grimes, of course, sitting in second for the US. We'll see how this rolls through. So, in fact, saying Grimes, our leader. So it is the two US up the front with Claire Weinstein and Katie Grimes leading the way. Jean-Blut and Paul of Monaco just sitting off the front, just out of your screen at the moment. Both Weinstein and Grimes, of course, such incredible prowess in the pool and open water fields. And we'll see how that plays out today. So far, both of the US swimmers so decorated in their chosen fields, and I'm sure it's only a matter of time until it continues to pull through to the open water. It's great to have such a strong USA contingent here in Hong Kong, racing strongly. This, of course, is our lead group. Claire Weinstein on the front for the USA. Katie Grimes sitting in second. You can just see behind Weinstein's feet, that gap just opens up ever so slightly. This is when you have a swimmer like Claire Weinstein who just holds so much pace in her stroke. You can really see it opening up. And actually, this is a move here by Claire Weinstein. A bit of a kick pushing her forward. Does Katie Grimes have enough to jump across? But even if you look a bit further back, say 6th or 7th down the pack, you can see that separation starting to cause. This could be a break here for the women's field. This is only lap 2, but there is fireworks happening throughout this leading pack. Claire Weinstein on the front for the USA, opening that up. The splits all over. This could get out to maybe a 4, 5, or 6 person lead group. That will be the podium if they're able to hold on here. This is really thrilling racing, and you can see with such a great shot by this drone, the pace and power that Claire Weinstein's able to inject into the race really shows how she is such a world-class athlete at just such a young age. This shot not quite painting the same picture of how difficult the pace is that Claire Weinstein's putting down, but so far Weinstein out in front, Grimes sitting second. I think that's Lisa Powell sitting in third. So we'll see how it plays out. We know Moesha Johnson and Chelsea Gubecka were just off the front after the feeding turn, and it's really starting to stretch out here. This is lap 2, of course. So plenty of swimming left here in Hong Kong. Once again, reiterating, if you are just tuning in, we did have a change in start time as our athletes have to be out of the water before a typhoon warning that is scheduled for 10:40 a.m. local time, just over an hour and 38 minutes for that warning to be in place. So we have enough time to see these incredible athletes make their way through the water. 25 minutes swum for our women. This is lap 2 for them. Our men 5 minutes ahead. Will be almost coming towards the end of lap 2 very shortly. We'll get a shot of that soon. These athletes will double up and compete in the 4x1.5 kilometer relay tomorrow, so be sure to tune in for that. But for now, we watch Weinstein. Grimes is saying as the leader, but Weinstein, is definitely swimming in that yellow cap for the USA. You can see that gap just opening up onto the feet. Again, Katie Grimes needs to jump across. Claire Weinstein, such a fantastic athlete, just because she looks so nonchalant with her stroke. She can hold quite a low stroke rate and maintain the difference from the rest of the field. Just an absolute tribute to the amount of power she produces through her stroke and how efficient she can be. Very much like Florian Walbrock, a long, strong and efficient stroke, and enables her to sort of sit at the front, and you can see you don't want that separation from first to second, and I'm sure Katie Grimes would be wanting to hunt that down. Back to the men's race. It's still Tommy Raymond out in front for Australia. You can see him to the center of your screen with the lead chasing group just to the right. It's an interesting line coming off Turncan 2 there as they make their way back towards the starting platform. Thomas Raymond just sitting out front, very high stroke rate, strong competitor and representative of the Noosa Swimming Club out of Queensland, Australia. Thomas not unfamiliar with sitting at the front of the race. It'll be interesting to see who's on the best line here. There's a far difference between the chase group and what Thomas is currently swimming at. It is absolutely essential, if you are leading the race and have got a gap to the rest of the field, that you swim the straightest possible line. So we'll see how that plays out. If he does have that right line, the chase group's going to have a hard time cutting back across the chop to get back onto Thomas Raymond's feet. He's really committed to this line, and Thomas also is has got a great surf swimming background as well, so he should be absolutely exceptional with these sort of skills, swimming into the chop, being able to sight the buoys. But this is a big difference between our first swimmer and our lead group. This is lap 2 of 6, of course. No sprint points on the line here. But, of course, Thomas would be wanting to capitalize. So I think that based on this shot, Thomas has gone quite wide away from the course. We'll have to cut back across. That's not going to be great for him. But we'll see how that lines up with the chase group as well. Chase group will have to swim in and across the chop when they come out to that turning platform. But for now, we sit with Thomas Raymond in what looks like a sensational stroke out in front. In the opening lap, we saw Delgado of Mexico, the young Mexican who's really stormed onto the scene after the last Junior World Championships, back racing here in Hong Kong, and he was leading the way actually in lap 1, and actually led to why there was such a big gap in the distance, or sorry, in the lead pack in that opening lap. It was the pace that Delgado was able to apply throughout the race. Really sent shivers through the back of the field, and has caused why there's such a big jump, and why we've seen Thomas able to get away after that first feeding platform. So we'll see very shortly when Thomas goes past this guiding can in a second. This yellow turn can, turn buoy, whatever your preference is, will give us an indication of how he's sitting in alignment with the rest of the course. Breaking down his stroke, he does look sensational. He has had a long winter in Australia preparing for this race. Unfortunately missed out on qualifying for this year's World Championships in Doha. So he has been in the lab working on his stroke, working really hard. I don't like how far away from that guiding can he is at the moment. That lead group certainly a lot closer. You can see the white water or the spray coming off Thomas's stroke, just showing how windy it is. You really don't want to be swimming any extra meters in any race, but specifically in a race like today where the conditions are going to be testing. 35 minutes in though, and he's doing a good job out in front, leads the way with some margin. We'll be able to tell when they realign in about 200 meters time on that red turn can on the left of your screen. It is quite a big gap between Thomas and this lead group, and we will see how it plays out. So this is lap 2, of course. Thomas Raymond out in front for Australia. He's got quite a big gap to that lead group. We'll see it converge on this turn can shortly. lap 2 of 6 in the water. The men's race underway an hour earlier than expected, with the typhoon looming large. Joined once again today, though, by Tokyo 2020 Olympian in Alice Deering. And Alice, it's hard to ignore the excitement surrounding today's race and, of course, the conditions they're going to be testing the athletes on the course.
Yes, certainly. It's still great that we're having a race go ahead. As open water is, weather comes and it goes like this. So great that the athletes can still get in and race. And we were just speaking yesterday about what a beautiful venue this is, and that it's so fantastic that we are finally back in Hong Kong.
Yeah, 2017, the last time we were racing here, and I'm sure it means a lot for many of the athletes in the water. This would be the first time competing in this incredible venue. I'm sure the test swim yesterday was a little bit flatter than what they'll be facing today, but that's the best thing about open water swimming. You really can get the best of both worlds.
Yes, definitely. And you're so right. You kind of end up preparing for a certain race in your mind, and then you can be informed of weather on the evening that it's going to change the way that the conditions of the race are, and sometimes in this case dealing with wavier conditions and chop, it really can like put a kind of a spanner in the works for some athletes. So be interesting to see what happens here. And we've just seen was that Raymond? Yeah, I'm sure. I think they're going to allow that. It was a obvious little blip. Not going to change too much, but he's really putting in a strong shift here, isn't he?
Yeah, he came through lap 1, missed his feed, and was able to get a gap from the rest of the field. He's held that lead throughout this lap. Unfortunately, getting a little bit confused as to what the turn marker was there, but still able to hold this gap to the rest of the field. So he'll come through this feed station unimpeded. We'll watch if he actually does take a feed here. He should do, yes, he does. Leading out the chase group, though, Nick Sloman, his teammate. I wonder, Alice, if there'd be any sort of discussion between Raymond and Sloman saying, hey, I'm going to go for a break here, make sure you don't bring them back to me.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I do always find this so interesting because, if you really, really have some fast swimmers and put down some effort like this, and we see quite a few swimmers being forced not to have a feed here, which towards the latter part of the stage will be absolutely crucial, and could be those points where you look back and you didn't really have an option, because if you want to catch up and be in the lead, it's things like this where it's just causing absolute chaos amongst the fields. You can see all of these other swimmers having to try really hard to stay on this pace. But sorry, in terms of Australia working together, potentially, I always think it can't be a coincidence, and it's quite exciting when we do see two people that know each other well, or that they train together or something like that, working together at the front to kind of cause this chaos at the back. It is still early days, so he's working very hard here, and it's tough to do this alone. So it'll be so interesting to see if anybody does get onto his feet and then tries to continue this pace forward if they do get in front of him. Yeah, but he's doing incredibly well.
It was interesting to watch that feeding zone. I believe that might be Ollie Clement that's moved into second position now. He has, whoever it is, has skipped that second feed in order to try and jump across to Tommy. And interesting to note that there is a little bit of a gap forming between second and third, which could lead to that lead group enabling itself to establish away from that lead chase group. And once you get 4 or 5 swimmers together, that is really what the podium's going to look like, and an unsurmountable lead at that point.
Yeah, certainly. And this tactic of someone really taking it out, putting in some very, very hard meters for about 4K, and then kind of getting the opportunity to switch off for a second, not for long, but to switch off, let somebody else go in front of them, and you suddenly realize, I'm dealing with a pack of a maximum of 6 people. The dynamic of the race is just completely different for you at that point, because regardless of how hard it's going to feel towards the end. You've kind of sewn up a very high ranking. You know, if not first place, you're going to finish like top 5, top 6. So it's a really comfortable place for an athlete to sit in eventually. But it's a lot of hard meters in the meantime, and it means chaos for the rest of the field as well.
Now let's talk to us about, as I believe we go back to our lead female group. Yep, this is our lead females with Claire Weinstein of the USA out in front, which I'm sure you'll be stoked about. Talk to us about the race moving forward an hour ahead of what looms large as a typhoon warning. What does that mean for the athletes and their preparations for the race?
Yes, yeah, this is a good point. I haven't even considered that for a second, but now, yeah, I'm realizing, you know, an hour is a lot of time. I've dealt with races being set back by an hour, 2 hours, 45 minutes, something like that, but being brought forward an hour is a big deal, because we typically would turn up to the race venue to 2.5 hours before the race start. Now I don't know when they might have found out it was brought forward an hour, but if you're turning up an hour and a half before the race start, that is a lot of prep and a lot of organization. You have to get cleared within a very short amount of time. And you know, thankfully the list of athletes wasn't obviously a world championship level where you're dealing with 80 athletes for the men and then 70 athletes for the women or something like that. That would have been chaos, and I'm sure the organizers would have thought of that already. But yeah, I'm sure there would have been a couple stressful moments for some of the athletes, and that kind of adds to the adrenaline that you're going through. You know, you're already like anxious because of the race, and then you have another like thing to contest and deal with, and it just brings the anxiety up. But sometimes that's actually quite useful, and that nervous energy can come out in a really explosive and impactful way during the race.
Yeah, you could see that early in lap 1 for the men. We had Delgado, the young Mexican, leading the way for the first time ever at a World Cup. So clearly benefiting off his experience that he gained at the recent World Junior Championships. And as we get a shot of our chasing packs of the men's and pan across to our lead group of the women's, you can see the impact that it's had on an athlete like Claire Weinstein as well, who continues to rise up the ranks in that USA cap. I think Taducci, in fact, leading the way now for Italy. But these youngsters, they're using the recent world champs as an opportunity to, well, use their experience to their advantage here in Hong Kong.
Yeah, certainly. I was just have to say it's absolutely fantastic to see Delgado up that high in the race. Hopefully it's still sustained for him. But yeah, you're so right. The experience that you can get from a juniors and the confidence that it brings, I think confidence is the key thing. It's just so exciting to kind of have a great competition, finish high up, or maybe you didn't quite finish where you wanted to in some cases, and have that fuel and that energy to say, okay, next time I get into a race, I'm going to right those wrongs and put myself in a better position. And regardless whether that race is a junior race or a senior race, it's so important to have that confidence. So it's fantastic to see these juniors going in and giving some really good hard racing to the senior athletes and saying that we're here and your places are under contention.
Yeah, that's it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. We see in this lead group, you know, you've got the likes of Taducci, Jungblut, Johnson, Gubecka, Spyworks, Juiz, and Cunha, matched by Grimes and Weinstein, who loom large as the next generation of open water swimmers that we'll see pushing through. So there are a lot of big names in this top 20 for the women's race, and I'm sure 2 laps done, there's still plenty of stories yet to come here, and there's not a lot of separation between the top 20. You'd say that anyone is still within a sniff, but when you have the likes of Grimes, who I believe is sitting near the front with Weinstein now, is you know that the race can change at any moment.
Yes, yeah, this is such a threatening front pack. We know Taducci is very fast. She likes to lead it from the front. She puts in hard efforts, and you just kind of have to cope with that pace and hope that there's kind of enough people around you if you're not that kind of swimmer to continue and keep those bridges gapped if anything starts to open up. But yeah, with Katie Grimes and Claire Weinstein sat at the front where, they're looking comfortable. You've got Vivian Jungblot as well sat in amongst it. It's just a little bit dangerous. I think it's a little bit unknown. It's not, we've seen Claire race a couple times on the senior stage, and she's won before, like in a blunt way. I think she's won one of the hardest races that I've ever seen on paper, and I actually raced in as well, and it was very very difficult. And she went and kind of walked that, and had a really great kind of debut into the senior stage like that. So it's definitely something that the rest of the women in the field will be considering as they move around these laps.
Yeah, and that's something that you can get away with once when no one really knows your name, but everyone would know who Claire Weinstein is now, especially after World Junior Champs this year, the Olympic Games, Olympic trials, and functional, as you're talking about late last year. Do you think there would be, the likes of Anna Marcela Cunha or Chelsea Gubecka watching Claire to see what she's deciding to move through the field, or with both, with both the US athletes out in front, that it's too much to watch?
Yeah, no, I think this is definitely a consideration, and I would be very happy being any of the other athletes seeing the hats of America. At the moment, they're very easy hats to spot. There's no question about who those athletes are, and you see those in front. If you see either the green or the yellow hat really, really start to ramp it up, that's when you need to know, like, okay, it's all systems go. Not that that couldn't happen with any of the other athletes, but just the strength of those two swimmers, and how easy they look whenever they swim, and what we saw Claire do in the 3K, and it looks, are they having a conversation? Oh, I love it. What do you think? Do you think they're having a little conversation there? Sorry, between Claire and Katie. It just looks like they were both had their heads up for like a sustained moment at the same time. It was just interesting.
Well, I was going to say, just off this feeding platform, it looks like the pace has just come out of the race ever so slightly. You can see Lisa Powell of Monaco on the right of your screen there in the white MON cap. And potentially the two US athletes were talking about either jumping across to that group or deciding to put some pace back into the race, because it certainly has dropped off ever so slightly. And you can see what there is 5 swimmers swimming on the inside of the course, hoping to get some separation from the likes of the Americans.
Yeah, certainly. And I suppose it's coming into the sprint lap, as in this is the sprint lap now. So we saw Lisa Poe, she led, did she lead? Yeah, she led the women's sprint on the first lap, and then it looks like she's coming back forward to take that again. So we'll be interested to see if anybody does jump across, or they're just kind of happy to let this go at the moment. The stroke rate's still high, but you're right, I think Youngblot's kind of knocked her pace off a little bit, allowing that to come through, and probably looking to get a little bit of draft and take a moment, because you can't do all the work this early on, not pulling through some of the amazing athletes that you have behind. Yes, certainly. It's interesting to see how quickly things change in open water, and I just want to stress that point for a second. Like, I think we looked away for the men for about 6 minutes, and Thomas Raymond did have a comfortable lead, but now that's came down quite quickly, and there's a lot of very fast arms coming through now, where these guys have kind of had time to really warm up, really get their energy and their systems going, and now it's kind of like all guns blazing. But do we? Oh, is the wide shot showing that he's still quite far in front?
I think
Is that,
that might
is this?
at the bottom of your screen there might be a chase athlete. Oh no,
Okay.
no, it does look like the leader of the race. So we'll get an update on who that is shortly. But there's a lot of chaos happening, which Alice, we're coming to realize is what is the sort of norm here at a World Cup level. We saw the end of Setipal 2 weeks ago, where we had Guidi just absolutely blow the field apart on that last lap. So potentially an athlete looking to do the same, but a lot earlier in the race.
Yeah, definitely. And I think this is what is so exciting about World Cups and its kind of own entity in that way, is that it's a great opportunity for senior athletes to try something new. And it's a fantastic opportunity for junior athletes to make a name for themselves. And you saw Greedy. Absolutely. Well, unfortunately, we didn't get to see it, but he did, take that race apart in the last like 1.5k, and really surprised us at the end, putting in a really, really cool effort. I'd love to know where he got that energy and speed from, and how he was able to make that happen, because something like that happening is so rare. So it's really exciting to see that, and we're just getting an update on the leader now. Yeah, you were right about Sloman.
Yeah, Sloman looks sensational, and he's had a lot of success here in racing throughout China. He won his first World Cup, I believe, back in 2018 range, in China as well. So I'm sure the likes of Tommy Raymond, who is on that top of your screen there, will be inspiring Sloman to really push hard. And you can see on the top, now on the top of your screen once again, that lead group is starting to dissipate here in this third lap, and that's a testament to the work that, I guess Thomas Raymond's put in, but also Nick Sloman, who's pushed the pace in this third lap, and Delgado, who did so in the opening lap.
Yeah, and this is always an interesting thing from Australia. Like, typically, whenever I've got out of a race, and as a former athlete, whenever I got out of a race and I was like, oh, that was really fast, like, who was that at the front? I'm usually told it was an Australian. And I find it so interesting that this must be it's obviously a very considered tactic from Australians. And this is obviously a question to you, Will. Like, what is this kind of training that goes into it? Can you give us an insight into what the mentality is, and what coaches and athletes are thinking when they're like, okay, yeah, we're just going to lead from the front and we're going to open the race up completely?
Well, it's interesting because you sort of can sense the difference between the programs in Australia as well. And actually, just quickly whilst we talk about it, there is a tiny bit of separation between Sloman and Marc-Antoine Olivier, who's currently sitting in third position. So there could be a bit of a gap opening up between the top two to the leading group, and that would be very dangerous for the rest of the field. As we look back, you can see Marc-Antoine Olivier sitting in third, just ahead of Kyle Lee of Australia as well. So, but to your point, Alice, mainly, this comes from the Noosa program by JR, who's the very famous Australian open water coach. Coached a lot of not only open water swimmers, Olympians in the pool, but also incredible triathletes. One of the best ever in Jan Frodeno, and they do love sitting at the front of the race. And as I've seen Sloman and Raymond sort of develop as young athletes into world leaders, you've seen their tactics change from sitting at the front of the race as to ensure they don't get dropped by avoiding that in the back half of the field, and now they're good enough to sit at the front of the race and really push the pace and take swimmers like Marc-Antoine Olivier or even the likes of Gregorio Palcineri, who have those incredibly fast last 1500 meters, just take the speed out of the back end of the race. So whilst it is definitely a tough tactic and you need to be incredibly fit to be able to hold a 106 to 108 pace for 10 kilometers per 100, that is 100 meters, sorry, you really can do some damage to the rest of the field. But yeah, certainly isn't for the faint-hearted.
Yeah, definitely, and it's it's so interesting to hear that they the coaches dealt with triathletes as well. The amount of I just think we're missing a connection at the moment between open water swimming and triathlon. So it's fantastic to hear that there are coaches that are bridging that gap, because I think there's a lot that triathlon can learn from open water, particularly that way around. But that you never know, there might be something that open water can definitely learn from triathlon, and there's obviously so many synergies between the two sports in terms of aerobic fitness and things like that. So it's nice to hear that this is already considered approaches which countries are taking, and it is indicated by the fact that you are having Mauricia Johnson, Olympic silver medalist. I think we've got a big threat coming from the Australian men this year, as we can see. This doesn't happen by mistake. This is very hard meters in training, and it makes for some very tough swimmers, because I always say this is swimming the race on hard mode. And I just really have to shout this out. I was shouting this out at the junior competition a lot. Absolutely fantastic to see Delgado still up there. I think he just missed out on medals at the World Junior competition, and I'm really excited for his future, because it's just going to be great to have a Mexican punching up for those medals, not a country that we typically see in open water swimming, in the top 10 or anything like that. So I'm really excited to have another country, another great athlete putting themselves forward in a very exciting way.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. He certainly sat towards the near the front of the race for the entirety so far. I'm sure this would be the point where it starts to hurt. They've swum 5k now in just under 58 minutes, and that's when the youngsters start to get tested. But also great to see Luke Ellis, who has had a massive year of swimming, competing at Olympic trials earlier this year and making the junior USA team to compete at the Pan Pacific Champs and as well at the World Junior Championship. So a lot of tough racing for Luke Ellis, and he's sitting up there in that top 10 spot. So clearly another youngster to keep an eye on. But the pace, Alice is hot in the men's race. They are making it look very easy in what is some very tough conditions.
No, I want to say about having at least two juniors in the top 10. I didn't take into account if there were any other juniors, but having at least two juniors in the top 10, I think, so far in this race, is so exciting, because it shows that they're not scared to get in and give it a go. And speaking from experience as a junior going into senior races, it's daunting. It's scary. You're sat next to the likes of Marc-Antoine Olivier if you're a man, or Ana Marcela Cunha if you're a woman, some really, really seasoned athletes that are the legends of the sport, and you can't get in your own mind about it. You have to stand up, tell yourself you're as good as them, that you're gonna compete with them and get in and give it a go. And it's fantastic to see these juniors doing it and not getting in their minds about it. But yeah, you're absolutely right. We're seeing some tough wavy conditions. And I'll just say earlier, it looked like they were swimming really fast and kind of skipping over the water. And what I think this is true, please correct me if I'm wrong, Will, but I've noticed whenever it looks like it's fast, that's actually when it's really slow, because the water's moving past them so quickly. It looks like they're moving at a crazy speed, but it's actually so much harder. And I don't know whether you think that's true or not, but that's what it felt like as a swimmer anyway.
Oh, so true. And also, the perfect opportunity to make you look a bit faster than what you are. But They definitely make it look easier on screen than what it would be in the water. And I'm sure, that is a testament to the amount of training that they've done to get to this situation. I'm really impressed here, Alice, by Thomas out in front of this race, as we move back to the women's. But yeah, really impressed with the way that Thomas has just been able to fight through the race and lead by a considerable margin and then come back and still sit at the front. Speaking of people that like to lead, we move back to Lisa Powell of Monaco out in front. This is a familiar position for Lisa.
Yes, yeah, we saw her at the front of Sechibol as well, putting in hard meters. I think really taking those sprint opportunities on. And we spoke about this in Sechibol, but it's just fantastic to see that is really being considered by the swimmers, of like making tactical moves back to the front to get those sprint points. I mean, especially if you're going to sit at the front anyway, I think it makes total sense to, put in more effort. It changes the dynamic of the race. It keeps it exciting for us, of course, not that it wasn't exciting before, but and it just keeps people on their toes a little bit during the race, because you suddenly realize the pace is ramped up and you're like, oh yeah, it's a sprint lap, like there's money on the line in this case. But yeah, Lisa Poo putting in some really great efforts, and it's fantastic to see her go from strength to strength. And I think she's having like a great couple of races so far since the Olympic Games. So I think it's setting up this year is going to be key for a lot of athletes, because you really carry through that energy. If you didn't have the Olympic Games you quite wanted, you kind of take a reset and go, okay, well, I've got the World Cups to finish off the year, put some hard efforts in there, probably take a little break over Christmas, and then it'll be all eyes on Singapore of getting qualified and then competing there and really hoping you can have that big breakthrough, like breaking onto the podium or something like that.
Yeah, I'm really excited for Lisa and what lies ahead. She was unlucky to miss out on some medals earlier this year in Doha. So I think if she can continue this fine form going into Singapore, she's a real threat for that podium, and would be such a great story for her to be able to go up on top of that podium after battling at such a high level for a long time. But breaking down her stroke here, Alice, it's quite smooth as she fights through this chop.
Yeah, definitely. I think this is with women especially, I think we see a range of different stroke types. Typically at the top now, the only one I will say that is the difference to that is probably Katie and Claire, and because they're coming from more of a pool-based background. But typically the only ones we see with longer strokes are swimmers who really can have that height and that power and that just really strong pull through. So for women, it's normally, shorter stroke rate, chopping the stroke quite a lot to just prevent the load on the shoulders becoming too much, essentially. And it's like, I ended up swimming like this. It's not the prettiest stroke in terms of what you see some of the women in the pool putting out, but it is the most efficient in terms of coping with the 10k and moving through the water, if that makes sense. So you still get to move through the water at speed, but you're not getting to 4k and your shoulders are in bits because it's having to lever so much power through the water.
Yeah, and well, yeah, I mean that's epitomized by Taducci, as you mentioned. That's why we've seen so many athletes from France and Italy be able to, I guess, stay at the top for such a long time and really maximize what their career can provide for them. And that's, I guess, the difference between athletes that then have incredible shoulder issues later in their career. But for now, Lisa is doing a fantastic job out in front. You can see that yellow USA cap, not too familiar to see the USA in yellow, but it's made our life a lot easier, and good to see that Claire's still tucked in. Be interesting to see where we have Katie, and I just got a shot of, I believe, Moesha in a little bit of a battle with Leah Boy, but of course we have the privilege of seeing that time update 5 kilometers in. Alice, there are still plenty of big names competing for this win.
Yes, definitely. It's just you can be lulled into a false sense of security sometimes when you see the first like 5 or 6 people, and then you look behind and you're like, okay, yeah, Leah Boy had a fantastic race in Sedgeable, really kind of broke through onto the podium, and I think had like one of those career-defining races that are quite rare to spectate in that way, because you can have a career-defining race, not in the sense of breaking onto the scene. Sorry, not completely defining, but being that real step up, and you can see that when the swimmer gains that understanding of this is what it's like to win. I think she had that moment for her, and it's quite rare to spectate sometimes because you don't always get to see it in such a fantastic way of someone having a win. Sometimes it's when they come 4th or 5th or 2nd or something like that. So, she's still sat within there. Going down this list, Caroline Juice, a fantastic racer. Of course, Marisa Johnson, Olympic silver medalist. Chelsea Gibreka is a very experienced racer as well. So, there are a lot of big names still sat within there that just there's a lot to be considering if you're a woman sat in this pack at the moment. Like, this race really could go anywhere at this point. We're only halfway through. There's a lot still to be played out, and I'm really excited to see how this unfolds, because it's strung out now, but I can see it snapping back a little bit.
So, on that, Alice, if you were in the pack right now, what are you thinking? Say you're sitting in about 10th position, going into the 4th lap here.
I'm thinking 10th is probably just about high enough to always keep an eye on what's happening, but you need to start etching up as much as possible, and ideally being sat on the feet of Katie Grimes at the moment. Like, I just wasn't able to pick up that hat at the moment. You don't need to be sat right in the front, because I think it's yo-yoed so much that you don't need to worry about who's leading it too much at the moment. But seriously, if you did see either of those USA caps start to pull forward, that's when you really do need to make sure that you are following the right people who can cope with that speed, and you don't lose sight of them, and you don't let it slip away from you, because it changes so quickly. You think you're in one place in one instance, and then you look up a minute later and the dynamics completely change, and it's all systems go. So at this point, for any of these women, you just have to be so alert. You can't let your mind drift at any point, and it's the same for every race, but I think especially at the moment with just the unknowns of the 2 American swimmers, but then also the fact that you are getting a lot of swimmers like Lisa Pu, like Taducci, who are changing the dynamic of the race. They're not like, over the past few years, they've came through and have become race leaders, and it's created a different dynamic, is essentially what I'm saying.
And Alice, you've said on broadcast previously that you're an athlete that used to prefer to sit back in the race and then move forward later on. If you were sitting, I guess, further back at the moment, with Claire Weinstein sitting in about 15th position at the moment, would you wait for her to move forward in order to signal your move forward as well? Jump on her hip to drive yourself forward?
Myself on the fence thing, I would be singing Christmas songs for the whole race. That is like the best present that you could be given, and I had the privilege of sitting on Sharon Van Roendaal's feet. I can't remember what year it was. It might have been 2019 in a Doha or Abu Dhabi World Cup, and it was like a masterclass in how to move around the pack and skip forward, and I sat there for about 2 or 3 laps, and I just kept following her, and it was absolutely fantastic. Actually had a really good race off the back of it, as you can imagine. So if you're sat on the feet of someone like Claire Weinstein, where she's not as experienced of course as Sharon Van Roendaal or Caroline Juice or Ana Marcel Cunha, but she has that speed, and I think everybody will know within that who she is and what you're dealing with there. So if you did find yourself behind her, I would just honestly work to stick to it. She's not going to let the race slip away from her, so you already have a great draft, a great link back to the group if anything starts to change drastically, and she's gonna sit comfortable. She has a nice stroke. I don't think she's gonna give you too much stress. You should just tuck in behind her nicely and follow that through. So yeah, I think that if I was in this race and sat in a position like that, I would be looking around, and if I did see her hat, I would be very, very happy.
And we didn't get to speak prior to the start of the broadcast, but I guess who's your pick to win from this point here? As you can see, Katie Grimes now moving through the field to sit on the feet of Lisa Powell.
Gosh, yeah, you always hit me with this. This is so difficult. Oh gosh. Yeah, we've got the beauty of like being halfway through the race. But even still, it's so hard to call, the threat of Claire, I think, is just too great for me to I just can't cancel that out of my mind. I don't know what conditions of the race. I'd love to see what conditions of the race could cause her not to win. It sounds like crazy, as if I'm saying it's her race to lose, but there's so many good women in there, like Marisha. Okay, what's your pick, and then I might change my mind.
I'm actually going to go with Leah Boy after what was pretty incredible.
Love that.
In Setable. I think both Katie and Moesha and Claire have all had massive programs over the last couple of months. So I'm going to back in Leah Boy, who I believe didn't take a break after not being able to compete at the Olympic Games. So yeah, that's my pick.
Okay.
We'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, she this is a really exciting period for her, I think, and that's what's so I think for a lot of people out there, if you're watching, that you might not have made your team for whatever purpose this summer, for whatever team that might be, there's still chance, there's still opportunity to, grow, adapt, develop. Yeah, okay, the Olympics didn't work out, but Leah Boy's clearly had a very strong idea of what she wants to do in the sport, and she's taken that opportunity and then burst onto the senior podium in a fantastic way at a really tough race, and she's going to make a name for herself. This is going to be a big year for her, and that confidence that she's gained now is probably more valuable in a sense than if she did qualify for the Olympics and she did compete, just because she really knows now how to swim at the front. She knows how to win, and going forward for the next 4 years, that confidence could see her, end up becoming an Olympic medalist or an Olympic champion. And it's born from unfortunate situations where you don't qualify for the Olympics. So what I'm saying is every cloud has a silver lining. Take those opportunities to, reset, reevaluate, and just say, okay, no, I really want to do this. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to take whatever opportunity comes my way. And I think Leah's a fantastic case of that. And it's great to see her, handling not qualifying for the Olympics in such a strong way.
And I think that goes without saying for everyone that's sort of tuning in around the world to watch this stream. If you're an athlete that's on the fringe of making your club team, your state team, your national team, competing here at the World Cups, keep trying, keep pushing, and one day, much like Leah Boy, you could be standing on top of the podium. Switching across though to the men's race, it is Tommy Raymond still out in front for Australia in this green cap. His teammate Nick Sloman just behind him, and their compatriot from Australia as well, Kyle Lee, rounding out that top three. Lee not usually sitting forward in the race, so potentially a strategy change from the coaching department at North Coast Swim Club, where Kyle Lee does train. But you can see Andre Filadelli starting to move through the field as well. There are an incredible amount of Italian men competing here in Hong Kong, and Alice, as per usual, I'm sure will be calling their names come the final finish.
Yes, yeah, I was literally about to say, it's obviously no coincidence that we see like countries at the front. So, we see groups of Italians, groups of Frenchmen, groups of Germans, and in this case, and I'm sure we're going to see in the future, groups of Australians at the front, because whilst this isn't a qualification race for anything, you're well aware of the fact that there are only 2 spaces for the World Championships, and then sometime, well, there's obviously only 2 spaces for the Olympic Games, but you might not even be able to get both athletes qualified for that. So you're obviously competing against the rest of the world, but you're competing against your countrymen a lot as well. And how they swim the race tactically plays massively into your tactics as well, because if they're sat at the front like this, you kind of have no choice but to keep an eye on them and swim with it and make sure that you don't lose the pack and that they don't get too far in front. And you'll be well aware of their tactics in this way. You kind of know if they're going to sit at the front, but if they're going to lead and take the speed through like that, you can, even if they don't say it, you can sense it in the camp, as in when you're sat around, and if they're doing a very vigorous warm up to really get their heart rate going, that's an indication of okay, this person's going to get in and give it some hard effort. And we see that with the Italians. They kind of have no choice. You've got so many fantastic swimmers, you have no choice but to be sat near the front doing hard meters, doing that tough racing, because in one moment, in one blink, if you're sat too far back, it all changes. You've been dropped off the pack and you're not qualifying for the World Championships. Sorry, I'm just going to comment. You can really see how windy it is when the swimmers are bringing their arms out, and you can see the water just being taken by the wind. So, the weather is picking up.
Yeah, it certainly is. You can see the trying conditions is why we've decided to start the race 1 hour earlier than expected. Thomas Raymond, though, leading the way, as we've seen. Sloman's at second. Delgado still up in the mix in third. Lee fourth. Guidi, Philadelli, Bonzel, Sanzullo, Olivier round out the top 9. So some big names. Straka rounds out the 10th for the Czechia Republic. And I tell you what, Alice, much like we commented on the women's race, there are some big names looming large for the men's race. Varani is in 11th. He hasn't won a World Cup in a while. Obviously, the 25 kilometer world champion. He carries an immense amount of class with him. He'd be looking at that top spot, of course, and continuing to build up his point tally for the overall rankings. As well, considering the rankings overall would be Guidi after what was a fantastic competition 2 weeks ago. So there's plenty at stake here, and of course with the Australians, 4 in the top 10 for them, they will be wanting to at least get 1 on the podium, potentially more.
Yes, yeah. Just seeing them all come through there, there's still a lot of threats in this pack, as we were saying with the women's. It's almost harder, to pick who could win the race when we're actually watching it, because you just, obviously it always plays out with a back and forth. It could come from anywhere. We're seeing like this effort at the front from both of the Australian swimmers. It's really, really impressive. To sustain this for this long, it's really tough swimming, and they're going to be feeling it, but trust me, the rest of the pack are feeling it as well. There was some mad sprints happening. A lot of feeds were dropped by athletes. They didn't really have a choice, and this is kind of the crunch time when you're really going to start to feel it. The fatigue going to set in, the lactate's high, this is where the strength endurance and all of those pull sets are really, really going to be kicking in. So going to be interesting to see if anybody does try to take this from Raymond, because they've just kind of let him swim at the front at the moment. But I don't know whether that is by choice or by force, if you know what I mean. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. Kyle Lee sitting in second at the moment. I know his instructions would have been specifically do not lead the race until the end of the race. So I don't think the lead's going to change from Lee sitting in second. But also interesting to note, Kyle Lee has been dubbed the best finisher in the field after, some crucial victories at World Cup stops, and of course the World Champs this year, where he held off at Terenza to claim the Australian title in the 4x1.5 kilometer race. So do you think that plays into the minds of athletes in the waters, knowing the prowess of a Kyle Lee out in front? You don't want to be going into that finish shoot with an athlete of that caliber.
Totally agree. Like, absolutely. If you've got someone that has that fight and that finish speed in them, and you're more of an athlete with a slow burn, like I'm going to starve the rest of the field out, yeah, that's a massive consideration. You need to make sure that if they're on your hip with 500 meters to go, that's you need to start sprinting then. You need to put down everything then to try and drop them and give as much of a gap as possible. And he does look really comfortable here. He's sat in a nice place. Raymond's doing all of the work. I think he's just it won't be easy for him, but enjoying that draft, knowing that he's sat in a comfortable position. It's hard to it's hard to lose from this point, if that makes sense. Obviously the race can still go anyway, but there's a lot of people that have to come past you, and that's a lot of time that you get to respond and start to move forward. So it'll be interesting to see if Lee does want to lead at any point and when he starts to do that, and if it's the kind of tactic which I enjoyed doing. I wouldn't sit this far up, but I would only ever want to lead the last meter. That was my ideal race. You lead when you touch the finish pad, and if that's what he's going for, it's going to be a very exciting finish, because you just won't be able to call where it's going to come from.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting to see how it plays out. You've got the caliber of Nick Sloman as well, sitting a bit further back. He, as I mentioned earlier, won his first ever World Cup back in 2019 in Chinese Taipei. Second last year in Funchal, Portugal, in that incredible race series that you were talking about earlier, Alice. And add Sloman, Lee, Raymond, who's been leading. We've got Ollie Clement within striking distance. Delgado achieving out of his skin, and Marc-Antoine Olivier just looming large once more.
I'll just say, Ollie Clement sat within there. I think if I was a man racing, that would be the one that I would be the most nervous by, and it's honestly just because, not just because he's Olympic silver medalist, incredible athlete, of amazing caliber. But I really have to shout out this race. I think it's probably one of the best open water performances I've ever seen, and I was only able to watch the race through a live update, so I wasn't able to see the footage. But I think 2023, please correct me if I'm wrong, Will, I can't remember, I think it was Golfer Aranchi.
Yep.
Golfer Aranchi, thank you. Just came through from, was it like 40 seconds back or something crazy?
Minute 20.
A minute, came through from a minute back to get on. I don't know if he quite won. I know he got into the medals.
Yeah, he got third.
Yeah, it came through from a minute back, was able to get third, and then I believe that's what qualified him for the World Championships. And it's really tough as a German, especially as a German man, to get on those teams, or German women as well. But it's a really, really tough country in competition to come from a minute back. I haven't seen that before. I really, really don't think I've seen that before, to catch up the best in the world when you're a minute behind. I don't know where his mind was or anything, but I really think it's one of the best open water swims that I've ever seen. And it's one of those where it didn't happen at World Championships and he didn't win. So I'm not going to let that die. Like, that's going to be like if I'm talking about Ollie Clement, I'm going to have to bring that up, because I really think it's just so outstanding.
Yeah, it was a privilege to call it, because it was sort of, you couldn't believe what was happening as it was happening. And at the moment, at the end of lap 5 there, at the end of lap 4, he was sitting 41 seconds back from the lead. So he does have a bit of work to do, but of course he's paired with none other than Krzysztof Rajewski, who's also sitting well back in the field. Moving across, though, the women's field, we've had a change in the lead. Katie Grimes taken over from Taducci and Powell, and Caroline Jouis has moved all the way forward for France, now sitting in the top 4 as well. So things starting to spice up here. This, of course, not a sprint lap, Alice, but Grimes clearly with intent on this back straight.
Yeah, this is kind of typical of a women's race, I think, compared to the men's anyway. I think the lead changes a lot. I, we have a lot of women who are willing to lead, but I think it just ends up being so dynamic that they're not allowed to lead the way they want to sometimes, if that makes sense. So, Katie Grimes, I think her stroke rate has definitely stepped up. And oh, this is like the part of the part of the course where it looks like they're swimming really fast, and that's when the conditions are like really tough. And that's what I realized as a swimmer. Like, you see footage back and you're like, oh, we were swimming with the current and it doesn't look quick. And then you see the parts where, there's a lot of wave, there's a lot of chop, the wind's coming over, and that's when it looks fast and smooth. But trust me, those are the hardest meters and the toughest parts of the race. So, you can see Katie's stroke getting kind of chopped up and swallowed by the water a bit. She's an experienced swimmer, so she'll be able to deal with it. But even still, for the most experienced swimmers, it's very annoying. You can see the wind here, really cutting across them.
Well, I was just going to ask, there's about 3.5 kilometers to go for the women here to, I guess until we see who takes out that title. Do you think as these conditions continue to deteriorate, there's going to be some thoughts of those athletes like, well, I need to jump earlier because I'm not going to be able to get the speed in the back end of the race when the waves could be potentially a lot higher? Or would that not play a factor for some?
I think some people would definitely be considering it. It's difficult because sometimes, like, you can feel things getting worse and you're well aware of it, but then sometimes it's just not possible to make those changes that you want to make. And this is where you can really see them like not struggling to move forward, but just the conditions making it more difficult. But yeah, sorry, to your point, it's you can have the best intentions, but then sometimes the race just doesn't play into your hands that way. And yeah, this is where you're totally right. You have to be so switched on and aware that, okay, things are getting worse. I can feel the chop picking up. I cannot allow a gap to open up. I need to start moving through. I need to get up into fourth or fifth position just to make sure I'm, within touching distance, that I'm in a comfortable place, that if things do start to get worse, I'm not one of the swimmers who's suddenly getting dropped. And it really can happen to anybody in those conditions where you don't get an opportunity to really surge forward. We're just seeing them come around now. We've still got Ana Marcela Cunha sat in a comfortable position there, and she's always going to be a threat from that position. That's exactly where she likes to be sat. I don't know how comfortable it has been for her. It doesn't look like it's been crazy fast, but you still have a lot of injection of pace at the front. And we see Katie Grimes skip what is essentially would be her last feed, because it's very unlikely you're going to be feeding going into the final lap.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out here, because it's caused a little bit of angst. The top three now separated from that lead group. There's going to be a big push. We saw Davison McGovern of Australia as well, a big mover on that fourth lap. Katie Grimes hasn't lifted the stroke rate coming out of this feeding platform, but she has ensued chaos sitting behind her. So this is going to be interesting to see how it plays out in lap 5. Of course, we've got that looming typhoon warning at 10:40 a.m. The girls will be pushing very hard through these last two laps, to be able to finish off in time, see who's going to take home the top position. And I say, well, Alice, I think an athlete like Chelsea Gubecka is going to do really well on that final straight into the chop. She is built for conditions like this, but she's going to have to move forward on this lap.
Yeah, definitely. Whether it was intentional, Katie did cause a lot of chaos after that feeding station. It's one of those where you're kind of swimming through, you're like, okay, this isn't too bad, and then you take your drink and you realize all of a sudden this gap's opened up and you're like, how did that happen? And it isn't even like, I'm just getting to witness it now. It's not even by an intentional injection of pace. It's just taking the shortest line round, not choosing to feed when you're leading, and it just forces everybody else to kind of have that adrenaline spike. You've taken your drink, your adrenaline spikes, you're under some stress, and then you don't even have to swim much faster to get back into the field, but it's a lot of energy that is used up, and kind of you end up getting back into it, and then you're sat back in there and you're like, you take a breath, you take a moment, and you realize you've expended quite a lot of energy. So I don't know whether that was like, it obviously was intentional by Katie not to feed. She chose not to feed at that point. It would have been part of her strategy, but she didn't even have to inject pace to cause chaos. And you know, as being a woman sat within that before, it is tough. So you know, we've got Katie in the lead, Taducci sitting in second, and then I believe I think it's Caroline Suisse in third. And we did see a bit of a gap open up, and then it's just been closed off now as Taducci's bridged that. She's just taking a look behind her to make sure she knows what's going on. These races, yeah, you can be sat in front and it's comfortable, but having that information of who sat behind you, what that looks like, is really important, especially when you're putting in hard meters and won't have as much of that finish energy and that speed at the end. And Taducci is one of those swimmers who likes to race hard from the front, drop as many people, and just uses her engine and her strength endurance to really wear them out, and does some fantastic racing. And I think we just cut back over to the men's now, and I think, is it Raymond still in front, Will?
Yeah, Raymond out in front, still in that green cap, and you can see, I believe that's Marc Antoine, who's moved up into second now, or might actually be Nick Sloman. It's hard to tell. These caps are going to start coming off as these conditions deteriorate. It's certainly not easy going for these athletes out in here, but Thomas Raymond, like, he has pretty much been at the front of the race for 8 kilometers. This is regardless of the result at the end of the race, you have to give the credit where it's due, and that is definitely where it is due so far with Thomas Raymond.
Yes, definitely. You know, putting in those hard meets start creating that massive gap. Oh, I think this is the first time we've seen someone really try and take it from him. This is going to be interesting to see if he jumps over. What like, it's I love it when this happens between two swimmers and it's a stare down. Like, okay, well, who's going to give in next? And I think the uncapped swimmer, as I'm going to call him. Oh, it's Guidi.
Oh, there you go.
Oh. Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay. Maybe if we get a repeat of Setchibol, I'd be quite excited just to see how it unfolded, like to see how he did that, whether there was a great line he took, or whether it was just through pure speed and power. I think it was probably a bit of both, especially with a race like Setchibol, and that might play into his hands as well here, because it looks like it's similar conditions of wind and chop. And he's looking really strong at the moment. You know, there's a very exciting pack. You know, we've got a lot of names within there that are going to make this a really, really exciting last lap.
Well, Guidi, it was interesting as he pulled up, he really accelerated that stroke rate, and that led to Raymond also injecting some speed. So you can see off the back of your screen, down the bottom left-hand corner, those athletes that just would have been burnt from that injection of pace are going to fall off the back of this leading group. And I guess, yeah, credit to Guidi to put in that pace. But he does not make our life easier with losing his swim cap constantly, jumping across at random moments. But I guess that's what makes it so exciting for Guidi to be challenging here. Still probably, you know, under 20 minutes of swimming left, but it's going to start ramping up very shortly, Alice.
Yes, certainly. And you know, he's making it look it's kind of like textbook at the moment. You know, if this plays out the way he's planning for it to play out, it's looking really good at the moment. But of course, Raymond's doesn't want to give up that lead. You could see that, and the way you said, Guidi pulled up, Raymond like took his up a notch as well. You know, kind of took that indication of, oh, okay, there's still people around me. I want to, you know, create this gap. I want to keep leading. And you're totally right. You can see the chaos that's caused. Like, the white water has definitely picked up amongst the men. The stroke rate is much higher, and you know, it's everything go into this last lap. So I expect this is where people will start to get dropped a lot, especially going around some of these boys, and when the race really starts to get more challenging, that's when, you know, the last couple rows start to fall away and you start to see smaller chase packs form. But yeah, it's really been tough. Like, Raymond sat at the front like this for this amount of racing, this amount of meters is so impressive.
Well, I guess talk to that, Alice, because a lot of spectators around the world would see someone in a swim race go to the front and sit there, and they just think, well, you know, it's easy to maintain your pace at the front of the race, but really it's quite difficult to not only maintain your pace, but ensure that you're reactive to when there are big moves put on by swimmers like Guidi's re-injecting now, and added to that, of course, you know, making your stroke rate set at such a high level when the conditions can change quite rapidly. It's definitely not as easy as people would think.
No, certainly not. And one thing I will say is, sitting at the front of the race obviously has its pros and cons. One of the cons is that you get into a rhythm of your own stroke and your own speed, and you're holding at like a very high threshold pace. Everybody else is still behind you working hard, but they get to work it's just that little bit easier for them because they get your draft. So you're doing all the work, you're putting in all the effort, and typically you've burnt your energy that you don't have another gear change because you've been sat at that speed for so long. It is so hard and it's so challenging to really have that strong gear change when you're challenged, like Raymond is being challenged with Guidi right now.
Yeah,
he's still doing very well. He's still in there. He's like in the mix. It's not like it's gone from him at all, but it's difficult to really find that challenge. And we're just seeing a swimmer get lapped here, and that is maybe not lapped, but it might have been a woman. I'm not sure, but it's tough when those moments happen for everyone in the situation. But yeah,
wow.
This is
yeah.
I think we're seeing a repeat of Setchable with Guidi, and it's
how's Varani?
Oh wow,
sitting in second there.
These Italians, they're scary.
Yeah, that's great. Oh, it's a good breakdown, Alice, and I guess like you are right. This is a danger point for not only Raymond but the entire field, as you can see Guidi just open up a little bit more gap to second spot there, and oh my goodness, it's going to be a very fast last lap. There are a lot of big names that have sort of slipped in down that top 20. And we haven't seen Rozhkovsky or, of course, Clement come through yet. So, I mean, it's a testament to just how fast these athletes are swimming. Raymond has slipped all the way down to third position, Philadelphia in fourth, and I believe Marc-Antoine is battling for fifth position at the moment. But Varani, he's another athlete that lives for these conditions. He's such a strong athlete, such a compact athlete, and swimming into that chop on that last lap, he's going to be one to keep an eye on. But Guidi just out in front, so long, so strong, and just looking so good, Alice.
Yeah, definitely. On Varani, the fact that he is 25k world champ says that he has the strength endurance to deal with conditions like this, and to deal with the kind of race this was. You know, when the pace is hot and it's fast, that's when your strength endurance matters so much. Of course, your aerobic system matters, but I really think at the level that we're operating at with these guys, the strength endurance is often the factor which can really, really take you out. And we look at the pace of Guidi here, his arms, that is a high stroke rate for a man, like really, really high. It's impressive. I never really quite, you never quite get to see it in men like that. So I just, it's cool and exciting to see. And, you've got Varani tucked in behind him. Raymond still sat in there, probably enjoying being on someone's feet, but maybe not in the way that he wants. But just like still like plowing through it. It's really, really hard racing. And this is what I say, like, we're seeing a lot of people take it on in the hard way. And Guidi, I don't know where he was sat for that long. I don't know where he was sat. I'd love to see when we get a breakdown of it at the end of the race, his placement throughout it. But just that kind of that exciting racing where he's just kind of like pops up and he's like, okay, yeah, I'm here now, I'm ready to go. He was, I think, of course, sat within the top 10 for most of it, so
Yeah.
not too far back, but really just punching through now and creating some space.
But he, like, one of the things that's important to note about Guidi is he's like 190 centimeters. He is a tall man, and for him to, you know, maximize his stroke rate like he's been doing is you know, that's not an easy task. It's a lot of man to move through the water, and he's doing it really well. Moving back on screen though, that's Dario Varani, currently sitting in second position. He is a very experienced racer, and we talked about Kyle Lee being one of the best finishers in the world. Dario Varani is certainly up there. Alice, this is an interesting point you saw take place on the end of the lap 5, but as these athletes start to go back past the back markers of the women's race, it could cause some chaos for the men's race, and this may be where Guidi's able to get some separation. In fact, I don't know if we can see his feet.
Yeah, this is the thing. I think you can just about, you can't see his feet, you can definitely see his waves. But yeah, and you know, Varane, the same thing happened in Setubal. He'll be sat here thinking the same thing, like, I'm not gonna let him get away from me this time. And he's doing very well at the moment, staying on it. But you're so right, 190 centimeters and having a stroke rate that high is so impressive. You know, really like having to lever himself through the water. Just the strength, and such a strong athlete. And I'm wondering. Oh gosh, I'm wondering if we're gonna have another Italian 1-2-3, like, because
It could happen.
I think it might be. It's on Raymond at the moment.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've still got about a kilometer to go to stop that, but they're just so dominant. Like, it's just so impressive. Like every time you think you've dealt with one Italian boss of like Palcineri who's not here, and then you get another 3 pop up.
Yeah, they are so strong, and as you mentioned, Palcineri obviously not racing, neither is at Sorenza, so they just continue to pull these athletes through their development program. And you know, Guidi, I'm sure, would be eyeing off the opportunity to race at the World Championships next year, because he, just by making the team for Italy, you put yourself in consideration for those medal podiums. But Tommy Raymond's still doing a good job to hold the top 3. Philadelphia just sitting behind him. There is a big group just behind that. As we get that shot now on the bottom of your screen, there is the second position in Dario Varani moving forward into first position. Still sits with Guidi, but this is really strung out here on the final lap, Alice, and there's still plenty of athletes that can move forward, but they're going to have to do it soon.
Yes, definitely. You know, this is when it's difficult for the issue of sitting further back, because you have to deal with the fact that you kind of have that pace lag, in the sense of when the pace does eventually ramp up, and you know, Guidi's chosen to get in front of Raymond, and Varani's doing the same. Like when they put that pace in, you can't respond to it instantly for whatever reason. Like, it's not like you instantly know that that's going to happen. So there might be, oh gosh, it could be anywhere from 1 second to maybe about 20 seconds where you just don't know what's happening, and then all of a sudden you realize it's starting to get strung out, and then you have to make up for that lag and then try and get in front of the person as well. So it is really challenging when the pace was already hot from Raymond. Guidi and Varani have came through and just said, okay, let's continue that, let's keep going. And you can see what it's done to the field. It's strung it out. We're now dealing with everyone just trying to go hand to feet, staying on it as much as possible, and you know, really battling through the last section of this race, making it tough. You can see from Guidi's shoulders the redness, the energy that's coming through him, the heat that will be coming off of him as well. Of course, the sun might be playing a part of that, but even still, there's a lot of hard work going through his body right now.
We're now about to turn into the poor conditions. A reminder, of course, to those tuning in around the world, we did start the race an hour earlier, as there has been a typhoon warning for 10:40 a.m. this morning, so we will have to withdraw some of the athletes that are the back markers of the race. But for now, it's all about the men's leading group. Guidi leads the way on screen currently. Dario Varani of Italy. In third position is Tommy Raymond of Australia, and there are a myriad of competitors that are going to be pushing through this final straight and into the wind, of course. So expect to see that play out differently to the way that we usually see races won. I'd say, you can sit a little bit further back when you swim into the chop, because when athletes move forward, it's not going to be as hard to get over the top of the athlete in front of you, because you are relatively protected by what's going on around you in amongst the conditions. So we'll see how that plays out here, but for now, Varani looking very strong in second position. He has to make sure he maintains that connection with Guidi out in front, and Thomas Raymond, who has been monumental throughout the race, still holding third position, but you can see Philadelphia and Marc-Antoine now starting to creep up.
Yeah, and it's great to be able to see how Guidi kind of like created that gap in Setubal, and I think it was just like inch by inch starving out the race until the point where like you just can't keep on his feet anymore. And I think that's what's happened now. Varani's really putting in a hard effort, but it seems inch by inch Guidi's just keeps lengthening that gap. And yeah, we're seeing Raymond now kind of, this is a really tough place to be. I think he's got two swimmers like on his hips, and it's really tough because he just kind of gets swallowed up. Or he's got one on his hip, sorry. Do you think that's Marc-Antoine or?
Yeah, I think that's Marc-Antoine. Yeah. Philadelphia still has his Italian cap on, so just sitting behind the two for fifth position. But that, as you can see, starts to bring sixth and seventh back into the race as well. So unfortunately for Thomas Raymond, this is going to be a very hard last straight, and he's done a lot of work to this point. So if he's able to come away with a medal, what an incredible athlete that, what an incredible performance by the athlete, of course. But I think you're right, Alice. We can see Guidi just stretching out ever so slightly over Varani. We know Varani's probably quicker over the last, say, 100 meters of the race, but you have to get there first. And that's where Guidi is really doing a great job, just to extend those feet. And whilst it might not look so much on broadcast, of course, in the water, even an extra 10 centimeters feels like a mile.
Yes, yeah, you're certainly right. You do want to be like as close to their feet as possible, so you get as much of that draft as possible. Tuck in, it makes the race so much easier, so much more comfortable. Not that it's comfortable at any point at this stage. It's tough. You really see the conditions, picking up in the sense of it's getting tougher. The waves are really cutting across them now. The wind has, as we've seen, has picked up. So. Oh gosh, and there's a big boat coming through as well. They're going to feel those waves at some point. They will definitely feel those waves. That's coming really fast, right?
Yeah, that's always a good test. Of course, I'm sure the camera shot probably doesn't align to where the boat's tracking in the course. They wouldn't be allowed through the race course, but this is one of the chase groups for the women's. Back to the lead now. Varani sitting second still. You can see those conditions really are deteriorating as we expected. Remember, 10:40 the time we have to clear the course, so we're going to be on for absolutely chaos in this last lap as they're about to turn into these waves. And of course, the women probably sitting 15 minutes away from the finish line themselves. It'll be interesting to see what's happened to that race on cue as we get a shot of Katie Grimes leading the way over to Ducci.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so I'm just taking in the top 10. Katie's still sat in front. Nothing's changed too drastically. I suppose that last lap was probably a bit of a handshake amongst the women. It's stretched out. It has stretched out in terms of everyone still in single file, as you'd expect going round the last chance to feed. No one's going to take that opportunity right now. You've got other things to worry about. So yeah, it seems like the last lap was a little bit of a handshake of just like, okay, we'll I'm happy to lead. I'm not going to make the pace crazy. I'm not going to slow down, but it's not going to be crazy. And now we're going to get to see the opportunity of the swimmers with speed to come through. And it's, Katie's still looking very comfortable in front. Got another amazing stroke up there. And Taducci sat in behind her. And was that Lisa Poe? Lisa Powell sat.
Yeah, just behind as well.
Lisa Powell, sat
Interesting
behind
to note though, Alice, Claire Weinstein not in the top 15.
Yeah, really interesting. I won't count her out. But for any athlete at any stage, it's really tough to come back from those kind of distances that we were seeing. I think it was probably about 20 seconds back. Was 15th place about 20 seconds back?
Yeah, that's right.
So we're talking about a substantial distance, which, you have got time to make it up, but not a lot of time. It's only 1.6k, 1.5k at this point. And the pace at Katie Grimes in front, she's not a slow swimmer. She's very, very quick. So you're going to have to deal with Katie's pace and then take off about 20 to 30 seconds, which is a lot to make up. So for any swimmer, that's challenging. But stranger things have happened, right? We saw, as I was just saying about Ollie Clement, we saw him put in an amazing effort and make up a minute gap in a short amount of time. So it's the fun thing about open water. I'm not going to try and call who's winning this. Katie looks very comfortable. We saw Leah Boyd coming up as well. So I don't know where that could go.
The top 5 is sensational with Lisa, Taducci in there, Leah Boyd, Moesha Johnson, and of course Katie Grimes leading the race. That's a star-studded top 5, but we shoot back to the men's and we still have Marcelo Guidi leading the race here, Varani in second, and it's starting to get very hot for third. This is going to be a cracking final 300 meters of the race, Alice. Do you change your pick at all? You backing in Guidi from here?
I think I'm going to back Guidi from here, just historically in such about what we saw. Varani looks strong, but I think it's going to be so hard to get over the top of Guidi. He looks like the kind of swimmer that's responsive. So if Varani starts to pull up next to him, I really think that adrenaline will spike and you end up being able to find this energy that you didn't know you had before. And I get the feeling he's that kind of swimmer that enjoys a race. And we saw it in Setchable where he kind of took it apart, and that's the kind of those are the kind of moments where you're sat in it, and the fact that you're leading by so much, and he would have had a look behind him to see how things are going. That's when your adrenaline is really going through it. So the finish is within sight now. It is all go, and I just can't see Varani getting over the top of Guidi here.
Yeah, it's going to take a massive effort. A reminder, of course, Guidi took out the Setchable win by 25 seconds. So although it is not as close as we are used to seeing at the World Cups, it's certainly a lot closer than the victory that came through in Setchable. It's starting to really heat up here. I think third place is going to be in a battle for itself. The top 2 managing to swim away, given that there's no distraction between them and the finish line. Guidi leads Varani, a mess for third, and a lot battling for that top 10. Guidi out in front though with that high stroke rate, and Alice, he is absolutely flying down this final straight.
Yeah, this is a great bit of footage. I really hope they do get to watch this back and just see and just take it in of both firstly the scenery, but of course the effort that they're putting in, and they look fantastic. This is where all of those hard meters in training and that tough race that you've had to deal with Raymond putting in so much effort at the front and sticking in there and getting involved. That's where when you get to the front and win or get on the podium, where it kind of all feels worthwhile. So absolutely great to see the continuation from Setchable for a lot of the athletes. And oh my gosh, yeah. What's the wide shot here?
Yeah, a big difference between those top 2 and the top, well, I guess 10 fighting for that third position. You can see Guidi with a much clearer angle on the finish line is just swimming away. And I guess we're seeing Varani just holding on for all he can. It's going to take a monumental effort to come over the top of Guidi here. Potentially that top 3 Italians once again on the line. Guidi leads them out though, and this has been an incredibly fast 10 kilometers in trying conditions. At the front was Delgado in lap 1. Raymond did the most throughout the middle 8 kilometers, and now it is the time for the Italians to move through as Guidi and Varani pull away from the field with every stroke. What a man and what a moment. Marcelo Guidi on top here, Alison, almost across the finish line.
Yeah, certainly. And, Varani, I think Varani really did step it up another level to get closer to Guidi.
Oh, here he comes.
Yeah, it looks. I think they know that these places are tied up, right? Which is, oh my gosh, we're seeing it happen now. This is going to be a really good final.
Yeah.
Is it probably about 100 meters into the finish at this point? Oh,
here
less
we
than.
go. So Varani needs to get on the hip here of Marcelo Guidi. He's pushing forward. They're about to enter the finish chute. Varani on the bottom of your screen with a black cap. Guidi responding by pushing him across to this finish arch. It's going to be 50 meters to swim here, and Guidi leads Varani. Varani crosses the back. This is going to be a great battle to the finish line. Varani fighting and taking the lead for the first time. Guidi and Varani stroke for stroke all the way to the finish line. Who's going to get the touch? There's nothing in it. Varani with the final touch. Oh, there's some battles there. Wow.
Oh, okay. I hope the officials are a bit. I don't know. Ooh,
Yeah,
okay, we'll see where that. Yeah.
Oh, interesting way to finish the race, that's for sure. A battle between Dario Varani and Marcelo Guidi. Varani getting his hand on the platform first. Olivier currently registered in 3rd position. Kyle Lee storming home through the final stages to, I believe, finish in 4th. And Philadelphia, well, it's going to be interesting as we, of course, wait to hear from the officials. You can see the two in Guidi and Varani talking on the platform now, and wow, Alice, that is some drama to finish the 10K.
Certainly, and it's always tough when you're coming into these races against countrymen like that. And I will say, I don't think that would have happened if that was two separate nations. I think there's and perhaps a little bit of rivalry. It's difficult to tell from the bod. There's some anger in there essentially, and I think both swimmers felt hard done by at that point. Varani, I think, probably annoyed Guidi with that initial cutover when he was on his right and he cut over to his left, and then just the adrenaline and the fatigue and everything that you've put into the race, it can be really challenging and emotional at some point. And I think they're just talking it out now. Yeah, you can see he's talking about the cutover, and I think that's probably what flared Guidi up in that way, and just ended up being not the finish either of them wanted, shall we say.
Yeah, I'm sure that the officials will be looking at that one and working with, of course, the Italian Swimming Federation to see what transpired. Of course, it's not what we would have wanted to see, and yeah, you work very hard for these situations. Both athletes, very passionate individuals as well, so hopefully we come to a good result. But regardless, a great way to finish off an exciting 10 kilometers for the, well, yeah, I guess we'll see who takes the win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. It's still, of course, an exciting finish. Varani coming through like that, and finding that extra burst of speed when Guidi really looked like he had it sewn up at one point. So, some really tough racing, and just congratulations to the athletes for persevering with that race because it was so challenging and so difficult.
Yeah, that is a true testament to what open water swimming can provide. And, well, I guess all the way from the start, where we had to change the start time by an hour in order to get through the typhoon warning, which looms large, of course. Unfortunately, we're going to have a lot of athletes unable to complete their race today, as due to the situation with the typhoon, any athlete who at 10:40 hasn't passed buoy number 1 on the last lap will not be allowed to finish. So we'll see how that plays out. That's Krzysztof Rozovsky coming across the finish line there. Alice, obviously a day he'd like to forget.
Yeah, this is the thing. It's challenging, you know. I think this is a great example of the fact that these races have stepped up. You know, you've had Florian Welbach and Rozovsky really change the dynamic of open water swimming and show people you can do this from the front. And it's shown the rest of the world, okay, yeah, if they can do it, I'm going to give it a go too. And it's kind of that fact that it's like this beast has been created and now it's completely changed open water swimming. So even when you have you know, Rozovsky, Clement probably taking a bit of time off after the Olympics, it's fantastic to see them back in racing. And it's tough meters, it's going to be hard meters, but honestly the training and the conditioning that you get from racing this is so valuable. You know, you're better off coming here and probably having a tough day at the office if you're someone of those two calibers of swimmers, because you know that you're not at your peak at the moment. You know you've just came off of an Olympic Games, you had a fantastic race there, and you're just kind of coming through this to get training, keep your foot within it, because things can change very quickly in open water swimming, as we see.
Oh wow!
So yeah, it's just the women's race. It's just been completely
it looks
different
like
from what we
Moesha
saw.
Johnson out in front.
Wow.
We'll see where Katie Grimes is. I think that's Taducci sitting in second, but it definitely looks like Johnson leading. I wonder if this is the lead of the race. Of course, we saw in Setable that there was some different lines going into the finish line, but no, Moesha Johnson leads Taducci. This could be... well, yeah, we'll see how... We haven't seen Moesha at the front of the race for the entirety. This is clinical open water racing here, Alice.
Yeah, and this is what's so exciting about the fact that the women's pack was just sat like being so, you know, chunky in terms of the names that we could just keep pulling out from it. And I feel like it was kind of like draw out, like who's feeling good today, you know, who's gonna take this on, who's gonna bring the race to everybody else. And Moesha Johnson is sat in that position now. Taducci, she's always just such a fantastic athlete, always sat at the front, always sat in first or second place, and you know, can really put down some hard meters. And she's tucked in behind Moesha here. I really think they must have created a substantial gap here. Would love to get a wide shot at some point, just so we can see who's in third place and how far behind that is. Well,
to that point as well, Alice, like they are absolutely flying at the moment, going past I believe that's Matej Kozebek of Czech Republic at the moment as well. So he's a great athlete, and Moesha and Ginevra just flying past him on this final straight, and no real third place in sight. I think when we do get that wider shot to see where everyone's sitting, it's going to be interesting to see how they've pulled up. But of course, the race, as we just saw, is certainly not won at this point. There is a bit more to swim. Oh, there is a chase swimmer in third. Let's see who this is, Alice. This is going to be interesting for the overall win. That third place is still within striking distance if they can get their line right.
Yeah, certainly. Like, are we seeing the left of the screen? That's Moesha and Taducci, and then the third place swimmer. And then to the right of it, was that the rest of the women in that large pack? Like, kind of like spread out sporadically. Like, it's
right.
yeah, it's taken an interesting turn. And, you know, we kind of saw it with the end of the men's race where there were very different lines into the finish being taken. So, yeah, so some interesting racing going on here, and it's just, I think the waves, the chop, the tiredness and the fatigue as well, it can really cause lines to kind of go out the window in that sense. And who is this? Oh, it's a German. Is it?
Oh, it
I
looks
think
like
Leah had a white hat on though. Or does she? Oh, okay, fair.
We'll find out shortly, but it doesn't necessarily look like Leah's stroke either. So, it's all happening here to finish off the women's 10 kilometers. This is, of course, the first day of action here in Hong Kong, China. the first time we've been back since 2017, and well, day one has certainly delivered, Alice, and the relays are looking good for tomorrow, but this has been chaotic on day one.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll just say, it's of course the race was brought forward by an hour, but I think it's fantastic that there's been perseverance to still get the swimmers in a race, because for some of these athletes, coming from America or from Europe, you're traveling really far to have this opportunity to race at such fantastic venues. So just like a huge thank you to the organizing committee, to World Aquatics, for making sure this race could go ahead, but also the safety of the athletes being paramount as well. And that's why it's being brought forward, because there's nothing is worth your health and safety in that regard. So fantastic to see, as always, that's put at the forefront.
That's well said, Alice, and yeah, echoing your comments. In third place, I think it might be Jeanette Spyworks for Germany, in fact. So we'll see how that plays out. That chase group that's currently sitting in fourth place is working very hard down this final straight. I can't imagine anyone being able to catch Moesha and Genevera out in front, and it's going to take a big effort for Taducci to get over the top of Johnson here. This is, a crazy way to finish, and what the podium looks like is still very much up for consideration.
Yeah, certainly. The speed that they're putting down at the moment is just so exciting. I think I've always quite liked watching Taducci swim, because I'm just like, wow, the stroke rate that she puts out, and I'd love to know the pull paddle sets that she's done. I bet they would make your eyes water, and that's what you see a lot of the Italians doing, is these really strong pull paddle sets, just getting their shoulders used to the turnover and having to deal with this. And that training has clearly served her very well. Moesha Johnson looks absolutely fantastic. She's got a beautiful stroke, kind of gliding through the water, and you can see how she is excelling in the pool as well. You said she's just qualified for the world short course for the Australian team, which is incredible. The Australian swim team at any event is challenging to make. It's really, really tough, and to do that in short course as a distance swimmer, I think is always so impressive, and you can see the example of that right now.
Yeah, Moesha Johnson certainly had a big year. Of course, the silver medalist from Paris earlier this year, where she was just behind the champion, that is Sharon Van Roendaal. She leads out Genevera Taducci. Would potentially be Moesha's first ever gold medal at an open water World Cup, and the first ever individual medal at a World Cup as well. So this is truly becoming the year of Moesha Johnson in 2024. She leads out Taducci, and we believe it's Jeanette Spyworks currently sitting in third for Germany, but there's a bit to work through, and that chase group for fourth is fighting hard. But all out in front between Italy and Australia. Can they get the double gold here? And can Moesha potentially stand on top of the podium for the very first time individually? This is all to be considered in the last 100 meters. Taducci's going to need to move here, Alice.
Yeah, and this is where, if you're Moesha, you're just like, just hold on, just keep going. We see Taducci take that pull out now, and it's one of those things where even if she's not going to come past her, it's still worth trying and giving it a go. You've secured second place. Taducci's a smart swimmer. She'd have looked around, she'd have realized, we've done it, we've broken everyone. So pull out, try, get round, get on her hip, give it a go. Even if you can't do it, even if you did need her draft, it's still worth giving it a go. And it's some really tough racing, but it was just seeing them come through the finish now.
Well, that's, I think, Taducci trying to pull off on the inside, but it's all Moesha Johnson out in front for Australia. She is becoming a champion of the sport. The silver medal at the Olympics now matched with a gold medal here in Hong Kong, China. Moesha Johnson on top for the first time in 2 hours, 6 minutes, and 39 seconds. Taducci gets second, and what a golden duo that was out in front for Australia and Italy. A great swim by Johnson, Taducci, and they'll be paired with, I believe, Jeanette Spyworks across the finish line. We'll see shortly. What a swim. Oh, Leah Boy, in fact,
It
it
was
is.
Leah. Oh, she's having a fantastic few weeks. This is so great to see. This was a very tough race. Setchable was really tough as well. We're just seeing a fight coming through now. It gets really physical and really difficult at the end. And you see Anna Marcela Cunha finishing there. Jeanette Spearwalk's in fourth. Katie Grimes in fifth, and just taking into account the gap which Marisa Johnson created with Taducci, of course, sat on her feet, to get 30 seconds on the likes of Katie Grimes and Anna Marcela Cunha is really impressive. And we don't know what the other swimmers were dealing with in those moments. Open water, there are so many different stories evolving every time, but every race counts. There's a lot of experience to be gained from each race, and great to see so many athletes constantly evolving their racing strategies.
And Alice, I just want to quickly shout out to Jacqueline Davison McGovern, finishing in fifth there. She's only 20 years of age. I think this is her second or third World Cup ever. That is
Wow.
incredible to come over the likes of the other Australians that they were competing internally at this meet with Chelsea Gubecka, Taylor Martin, Bianca Chris, just to name a few. What a sensational performance it was there by Jacqueline Davison McGovern.
Yeah, certainly. 20 years old is so young. We see like Katie Grimes and Claire Wine. Well, Claire Weinstein's at 17, but please take into account these are very young swimmers, and typically with open water swimming, we see it go into 27, 30, 31 years old. Not that this is old at all, but I'm just exampling it to show it's a sport of experience, and where experience really does matter and really can add up. So to see the fight from Jacqueline there is so exciting, and definitely a name to be watching for the future. And fifth place at a World Cup is so impressive.
And what a swim by Lisa Powell of Monaco. That was not an easy swim to sit near the front and push all the way to the end. She's definitely, cementing her name as one of those athletes that's, consummate professional and continuing to push through at this World Cup level.
Yeah, certainly. It's always a pleasure watching her swim, and she really takes it out at the front, especially for the sprint laps. And she's been doing this for a while, so it's great to see her, up within the top 10, the top 5. And I really think, like I was saying about Leah Boy, where you see kind of those breakout swims, I really think we're on the cusp of Leah's happening very soon. And we're just seeing Claire Weinstein come into the finish now.
So, surprising result for Claire Weinstein, but I'm sure she will learn from this experience.
Definitely, I think we can just see the swimmers talking about it here. I think they're probably saying about the conditions of the race at a certain part, about the chop, and pointing to the course and being like, on this straight or on this section. And it's so true. You'll swim around it and you'll be thinking, oh wow, this is very different to where the feeding pontoon is, or the first straight going down the course. You can really feel the difference. And even sometimes you feel like the patches of the water at different temperatures, and you're like, oh, that's a bit cold. So I think it's always nice to have a little debrief at the end with other swimmers and just make sure you weren't the only one experiencing that. That you aren't, of course, but sometimes your mind can make you think you're being dramatic or something like that. So just nice to have a little debrief with your fellow competitors.
Yeah, I'm sure it definitely feels like you've gone to battle after a race like that, where the conditions can be so testing. Even just looking at the finishing platform there, you can see the conditions really pushing those lane lines all the way across the field. So what a race it's been, Alice. Of course, this is only day one. There's still another day of racing ahead as we get ready for the 4x1500 meter relay. It'll be good to see a lot of these athletes back it up tomorrow. And the first time since the world champs, we get to see the reigning world champions in Australia enter a relay and see if they can defend their title. They have not been beaten since early last year.
Yes, the relay is always such a great race to watch, to speak about. We were treated to some in at the World Juniors. Unfortunately, didn't get in Sechibol, but we've got it here, and there's some fast swimmers in there. I think we've got two Italian teams. Be interesting to see how they split up their swimmers, if they go with an A team or a B team, or like a red team and a white team, in the sense of you can't really call which team's going to be better. So um, there's definitely a lot yet still to come. Of course, we've got the medal ceremonies to come as well.
Yeah, so just on that, of course, we'll do the medal ceremonies as soon as we get the official results. Of course, we saw the end of the women's race nice and clear through the top three, but that top three of the men's under review after a very, difficult finish for both top two athletes in Marcella Guidi and Daria Varani. So we'll let the officials go to work, and we'll see when the results are officially reported. But also just a reminder that a number of athletes will have to be withdrawn today due to the situation with the typhoon. Any of the athletes that weren't able to pass buoy number one before 10:40 have unfortunately been withdrawn from the race. So you can see those final athletes coming down that final straight. But as Alice mentioned earlier, safety always as a number one priority here.
Yeah, I just want to comment on how beautiful this venue is, and you can see this is a great shot of the amount of safety that goes into these races. And I think it's difficult to tell from when you're at the water level looking at the swimmers, but seeing all of these boats be out there, all of the kayaks, making sure swimmers are spotted, that if a swimmer's swimming by themselves, they have eyes on them at all times, because we are swimming in open water. It's there are dangers to it, and the protection of the athletes is key. So as fantastic as the racing is, it's always so important to just highlight the fact that there is safety out there. And sometimes the safety boats can be a little bit annoying. I've had it before where they cut in front of you, but it's obviously just to make sure that everything's good and we're all okay. So I just highlighting how impressive the organizing is, and this beautiful venue.
Well, how magical as well, Alice. We've talked a number of times throughout the broadcast about how excited we are to be back here in Hong Kong, and it's put on a show. Although it's been tough racing, this is what open water is all about.
Yes, definitely. And I feel like I just keep saying tough racing all the time, because I really it is. I think it's the hardest summer sport in terms of the summer games. I really think it's the most challenging event at the Summer Olympics. But the way athletes swim it don't make it easy, right? Like, we're not talking about sitting back for 8K and then swimming 2K fast at the end, and the women completing it in 2.5 hours and the men in 2:15. These are holding high averages per 100, fast swimming. And it's just the expectation that athletes have to deal with that. No one's trying to reinvent the wheel with open water swimming. In fact, it's getting harder. It's getting more kind of primitive in a way, of the sense of, let's just get in and race hard meters and we'll burn out the rest of the field. So and I think it's only going to go that way more. I think the women are going to start to step into it more, as we've seen. We haven't really seen anyone really take it out like Thomas Raymond did in this race, for example, but I think we're edging towards that.
Yeah, it's an evolving sport, which is good to see, and good to have the viewers around the world watching on as we continue to develop. As you can see, the wind that's coming through on those trees there, that is sensational sort of conditions to have raced 10 kilometers in. Of course, the typhoon warning has been issued for 10:40 a.m. local time, which is 13 minutes ago, which is why we had to start the race an hour earlier than expected. So the athletes did a good job managing those conditions, and a true testament to the organizing committee to be able to get them underway. A lot of other sports would have chosen to decide not to race, but here we are at the end of the 10 kilometers, waiting for the official results, of course. Oh, and there we have it, Alice. On cue once more. Dario Verani officially on top ahead of Guidi and Marc-Antoine Olivier. What a result that is, the top three. And Kyle Lee just outside behind Marc-Antoine.
Yeah, I think Kyle Lee came through very well there at the end, and Thomas Raymond did so well to hang on for 6th place. I know he'll be looking at that, trying to see where he could improve, and absolutely so, like some really, really good racing, and not, of course, still stuck within it, still really, really held in there. So that's not the last we're seeing of him. I think it's really exciting to see how he took on that race, and it shows real intent of what he plans to do. And he's definitely someone to watch out for. And I just want to shout him out again as well. Delgado of Mexico finishing 10th place. Fantastic finish. I don't know if this is his first World Cup, but really, really exciting prospect for the future. And already, punching up into being a top 10 in a World Cup amongst a really challenging field and in a tough race. Just huge congratulations. And I think the future's really bright.
Yeah, speaking of bright futures, Alice, we've sort of seen, we've talked a lot about Katie Grimes. Oh, actually, here we go, the top results for the women. Moesha Johnson, for the first time, claiming that top position. What a result. 2:06.38 the time across the line. Taducci in second. Leah Boy rounds out the top three. And Spyworks just outside for fourth. So a great way to end the women's race. But I was saying, Alice, of course, we've talked a lot about Katie Grimes and Claire Weinstein as the future of open water swimming for the USA, but also a quick shout out to Dylan Gravely and Luke Ellis of USA, all swimming from the same program as Sandpipers in Nevada. Like, what a result to have all those youngsters sort of training together. I know Brendan Gravely, who retired last year, was from the same program and a great swimmer competing at the world level for USA as well. So, when you have those programs put together, they do produce some immense amount of talent.
Yes, yeah, that's such a good point, and thank you for highlighting that. It's really, so open water swimming can be lonely in the sense of you think you're the only one going through it, but getting to swim with other athletes of the same age especially, who are all doing the same thing, you're all doing this incredibly hard work. And I will say with Sandpipers, some of the stuff I've heard, really challenging, really tough racing, really tough training, sorry. So getting to do that with people that hopefully they call each other friends, because you go through some tough times together, you want to stick together and be able to rely and count on each other, and then get to come and compete together as well for your country. And I know Americans, I know everybody around the world, we all take pride in competing for our country, but you can really sense with Team USA, there's a real power and pride that they take through with that, and I'm sure they're enjoying those opportunities to travel the world together, to race together, and really punch onto the senior scene like this.
I'm just getting some of the replays of both the men's and women's 10Ks. That was the finish line there. As you can see, just so much contact between Guidi and Verani. And as all the officials watching on, it was a great finish. And Marc-Antoine just with a better angle over Kyle Lee. Lee just unfortunate on that finish that it cut across, and settling for fourth position. There was some good highlights there, and shout out I know we've talked about it a lot, but shout out to Tommy Raymond for the work that he did, but also to Delgado, who put the pace on early in the opening lap.
Yes, yeah, definitely. The results list never really tells. Of course, everybody deserves their result in that sense, like especially being in the top 10, you've worked very hard to get to that point. But sometimes the results list, it can't tell the full story. Like Thomas Raymond, really, that gap he opened up in lap 2 was very impressive. And it's exciting to see his future, and maybe if he held that back for a little bit later on, what could have been. So there'll be a lot of lessons for him to learn, but a fantastic result, like a really, really great result. So, and like you said, with Delgado leading it at the start to getting that sprint lap in, it's fantastic to see some new names coming through.
That's right. We've got the highlights here for the women's races. It was a very physical race, as per usual for the women. They went through very quickly, with Lisa Powell doing a majority of the work, shared by Jennifer Ricciarducci. Of course, we saw Katie Grimes featured up the top with Claire Weinstein as well. Good to see some representation from the hosting federation. It was Katie Grimes actually leading into that last lap before Taducci was joined by Moesha Johnson, who ultimately swam away for the win in what was a impressive final lap. Tough finish, as we've seen throughout. Taducci got second. We saw Leah Boy continue her fine form to round out the top three for Germany before the lead group came across the line. Great result here in Hong Kong. We're back racing after 2017, the last time we were here, and we are thrilled to be calling the action on day one of this fourth stop of the World Cup series. And Alice, we've talked about the relay, and I think we know where my pick's going to land, but do you have a favorite for the 4x1500 tomorrow?
I'm leaning towards Italy. I know you're going to be Australia, right?
Yeah, I have to go the home pick here.
Yeah, I respect that. Fully respect that. I'm kind of torn between those two. America's going to be a massive threat, right? Like, please, like, we can't count them out. I can't count Germany out. But I think Italy have just like had so much. Okay, it just depends on how they split their team, right? Like I said, if they go with more of a team that they're kind of putting their eggs in their basket to win, or whether they kind of split it evenly, will be a big indicator. But even still, like, the depth that they have is so impressive, and they've got some really, really good racers in there. And I think if this was a 4x1500 in the pool, my money would be on Australia. But I think just because the way that Italians can just get in and race open water swimming, I'm gonna have to just back them ever so slightly more than the Australian team.
I think I'd go to jail if I picked anyone but Australia at this point. I've been told off prior about not backing in the Australians, so I won't make that mistake again. But also added to that, I think they have such incredible form in the relays. They've got such belief in their abilities as well to produce good results at this level, and they love an underdog story. So I think the Australians, with Moesha in the form that she's in, and then Kyle Lee on that finish, I can't imagine a world where they don't win tomorrow. But I guess that's where it's going to be exciting to call that race. And as you mentioned, the Americans in there, the Australians, the Italians, the French, I'm sure, will enter a strong team, and Hong Kong, as the host federation, will be swimming strongly as well. So there's plenty of action to look forward to in that. There's plenty of action still left here today as we get ready for that medal ceremony. But for now, we will take a quick break as we get ready to see the top three in the men's and the women's 10 kilometers.
So the only athletes who are in the top ranking and you need to do the doping test, please stay behind and take the shuttle bus at 11:30. Thank you.
as the graphic indicates on the screen now, of course, the victory ceremony for both the men's and the women's 10 kilometers only minutes away. We've had the results officially recognized by our officials, and we'll be heading to medals shortly. So please stick around to see the coverage of both the men's and the women's medal presentation.
Ladies and gentlemen, our prize presentation ceremony will start soon.
So here we go, back in action for the victory ceremony for the men's and the women's 10 kilometers. What a race it was. What a finish it was in the men's 10 kilometers. We've seen the results now ratified, and we'll have our athletes introduced. And Alice, once again, we have some special athletes stepping up on that platform, but Marc-Antoine Olivier gets in the way of the Italian domination. Not sweeping the podium today, but very much close to doing so, with the top two in the men's race going to Marcello Guidi and Dario Varani.
Yeah, yet again we get to hear the Italian national anthem, and it's not the clean sweep that we saw in Setubal, but we do have Tadaducci finishing in second place for Italy in the women, so still coming away with 3 individual medals, so half of the medals available for the 10K going to Italian swimmers, and the domination that they show time and time again at World Cups is just so impressive.
You are absolutely right. And in the women's race, what a year it's been for Moesha Johnson, taking out her first individual title in the women's 10 kilometers, and as well Leah Boy rounding out that top 3. What a way to cap off an incredible fortnight for her.
Yeah, certainly, and it's going to be exciting to see where the standings are looking at the moment, moving into Saudi Arabia in a few weeks' time. I really think that's going to be, not that these races haven't been heavily stacked, but I really think there's going to be a lot of people there vying for, those top spaces for the prize money. And just on Leah Boy as well, she's had a fantastic couple weeks, and she keeps going from strength to strength. Again, a really tough race today. Moesha Johnson came through really well there, and just to comment, Moesha was also in Setubal, so clearly taking some learnings from that if it didn't go the way that she wanted, and executing a race perfectly here today.
Yeah, I think it's a testament to how good these athletes are to take a significant break after the Olympic Games, and that has definitely impacted some of our athletes. We saw Christophe and Ollie Clement unfortunately not feature in today's race after battling through the return to training and competing. To see Moesha, who was featured throughout Setubal but wasn't really in a threatening position for the overall win, for her to come back and just be so clinical today, that is
teams and athletes getting in front of the digital monitor to celebrate and to congratulate our winners. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. We have a lot of big names really punching through in this sport, and I think what's so exciting is that it's never just a one-man show with World Cups or the Olympics or Worlds or anything like that. It's never just one person absolutely sweeping it all the time. You do have people consistently on podiums, but it does change hands often. You had Florian Wellbrook, who did dominate it for a section, but still had that competition from Rozovsky, and now it's Rozovsky in that limelight. But you still have Marc-Antoine, Oliver Clement, really coming through, and the women, especially true for them as well. There's so many names
ceremony is about to begin.
For those top positions. It's such
First, we'll start with the men's 10K meters. First of all, we are very honored to welcome Mr. Ronnie Wong, the president of the Hong Kong China Swimming Association, to present the prizes for us.
Have been testing for the athletes.
Winner of the bronze medal goes to Marc-Antoine Olivier, representing France.
As we shoot down to the medal ceremony, Marc-Antoine Olivier rounding out that top 3. Back on the podium where he belongs, and seeing Mark with a medal is just a natural sight.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, he's a classy racer, very smart, very well experienced. Always there, always there, ready to punch through. He's always a threat, and it's no surprise that we see him on the podium here today.
Next, the winner of the silver medal goes to Marcello Guidi representing
In
Italy.
second, it was Marcello Guidi, and he did such a fantastic job to really establish that gap between first and second to third. And, he's rewarded with the silver medal and very, very close to that gold.
Yes, definitely.
And
I
the gold
think
medals
I
go
was kind
to
of reflecting on it at the end. I think
Dario
Guidi
Varani
reflected the
representing
fact that
Italy
he
as well.
impeded on Varani, and that's why he just was like, okay, yeah, you take the touch for the finish. I got the vibe that that's what had happened at the end, and great to see them, give each other some respect at the end, and hopefully they've had a time to have that conversation and let it all
Let's take a group
relax and calm
photo.
down. And we see Varani with a very well-deserved gold medal.
What a result for Varani. He is such an incredible
Thank
athlete.
you,
And
Mr.
good to
Ronnie
have
Wong,
him
for presenting
on top of the
prizes for
podium
us.
as we get ready to hear the Italian national anthem once more at a World Cup this year.
And now
What a
please
result.
stand for the national anthem of Italy.
There we have it. On top of the podium, Italy 1-2. Marc-Antoine Olivier in third for France. What a
Once
result
again, congratulations to
for
our
Hong Kong
male
here,
swimmers.
Alice.
Next,
And
we are
what
going
a
to
result
present the prizes
for
for
the
the
men's
women's
10
10
kilometers.
km meters.
Yeah,
First of all,
yes,
we are very
it's
honored
just so
to
great to
invite
see.
the
Great to
honorary
be back
secretary
here.
of the Hong
I
Kong
know
China
this
Swimming
is a special
Association,
race
Mr.
for a lot of
Wilson
the
Yeo,
athletes.
to
I
present
never,
the prizes for
unfortunately, I
us.
never got to do it, but it was always one that I was really hoped I'd get taken to. So great to see it back on
The winner of the
on
bronze
roster
medals
of
goes to
competition,
Leah
and
Boy,
hopefully
representing
the athletes
Germany.
had a good time out there as well today.
I'm sure they did. Testing conditions always lead to memorable races. Leah Boy on the podium in third position. What a year she is having.
Yeah, I'm very excited for her. This is setting up for a fantastic cycle going into LA, and
Next, the
these
silver
years
medals
tick down
goes
quickly. We're
to
already like
Tadeusz
come
Ginevra,
Singapore will be 3
representing
years out from the
Italy.
Olympics, and yes, that doesn't sound like that sounds like, oh, you've got loads of time, but things go quickly, and setting up these moments and taking these opportunities to get onto world level podiums are so important. And Tadeusz, another fantastic athlete and racer, she always turns up, always puts in an incredible shift.
Ginevra, what a year she's having as well. Of course, competing
gold
in
medals
Paris
goes to
and taking home bronze medal
Moesha
in that race
Johnson,
behind two
representing
absolute
Australia.
stars of the sport. And one of those stars continues to shine bright, Moesha Johnson. The first time she's been on top of the podium, and what a result for her, Alice. I'm sure this is a moment she'll never forget.
Yeah, certainly. So exciting to see 2 of the Olympic medalists on the podium here. And,
Thank you, Mr. Gern.
What a moment for Leah Boy. I keep stressing this. I'm really
Now please
excited
stand
for her.
for the national
standing next
anthem
to
of
the
Australia.
2 Olympic medalists, the other one missing from this competition, but exciting future for her. And we're going to hear the national anthem of Australia now.
What a moment for Moesha Johnson, standing on top of the
Once
podium,
again,
hearing
congratulations.
her national anthem as Australia get an individual gold at a World Cup. It was a while
Next, we
since
will
that happened.
continue
With
with
Chelsea
our
Gebeka
World
last
Cup
taking
leader
the win
ceremony.
last
And first of all,
year.
we were presenting
So
the
what
prizes
a
for the
way
junior
to round out
leaders.
day one here, Alice. Do you have a moment of highlight, or it's just the whole day of racing?
Again, we invite honorary
that's a good
secretary of the
question.
Hong Kong China Swimming Association, Mr. Wilson Yeung,
I
to
th-
present
I-
the prizes for us.
I think Raymond. I have got to shout out Thomas Raymond. Just
First of all, the
really,
current
really
open water
doing it-
swimming
doing
World
it the
Cup
hard
junior
way.
men leaders
Oh.
goes to Medels Malechi,
So
representing
just,
Brazil.
presenting some of the winners of the categories so far. So this is our junior men's leader from Brazil, Malechi. He's been big all year this year.
And again, this is just great to see. That encouragement of junior swimming. Getting some recognition
And for the
fact
junior
that
women leaders
you are
goes
racing
to
against some of the
Lysian
best, the
Zobel,
best in the world, of
representing
course.
Brazil.
And it's great to see them getting a moment to be celebrated by the officials, by the sport, and have some recognition for that.
Well, and how good for Brazil to have both the men's
Yes.
and women's junior leaders as those recognised. And, this is the result of, obviously, Ana Marcela Cunha and all the incredible Brazilians that have come before them, but
Thank you, Mr.
also
Yeung.
to that fact, the Rio Olympics back in 2016.
Of course, and this is what legacy can create.
Next, we are going to
had
present the
Okamoto
prizes for
back
the
in Rio,
sprint leaders.
get bronze,
First
I
of all,
believe.
we are very honored to
Of
invite
course,
the
Ana
safety
Marcela
delegate
Cunha,
of this
Vivian
station,
Youngblood,
Mr.
some really, really big names and
Yoki
stars of the sport. And
Ichikawa.
it's not a coincidence that we're seeing a domination from the junior end. So it's great to see, and it's
For
great
the
to see
World
that
Cup
that is
men's
a
sprint
continued
leaders
approach.
goes to
That's right. We'll go through our sprint
Marc
results
Antoine Olivier,
now,
representing
and
France.
we see Marc-Antoine Olivier, who is paid dividends after what has been a long season for Marc. He's been pushing hard, but here he is reaping the rewards through the sprint points leader.
Again, yeah, fantastic to see that this is commemorated by the organising committee and World
And the
Aquatics
women's sprint
in this
leaders
way.
goes to
Just
Lisa
highlights
Boy,
the fact, yeah,
representing
it's of course it's always
Monaco.
worth racing, but it's nice to get that recognition, especially putting so much time and effort into the sport. You travel the world, you sacrifice a lot. It's great to see. And we got Lisa Poo here as well. Lisa Powell, sorry, getting getting her cap.
Yeah. Doesn't want to put the hat on, though.
Yeah.
And this, as you said, recognizes those people that are, constantly leading races and pushing near the front. And it's great to have that as an added benefit to competing at the World Cup Series.
Yeah, certainly. I
Congratulations
think,
and thank you, Mr.
It could feel a bit
Ishikawa.
thankless sometimes if you put in all this effort and you don't quite get
And
onto
then
the
for
podium.
the last one, we will be presenting for the overall World Cup
And then
leader.
we have our
And
points leaders,
first,
the
we're
overall
very
World
honored
Cup as
to
well.
invite the technical delegate of this section, Mr.
And,
John West. to
interesting
present the
results.
prizes
It's
for
very
us.
close with one round still to come here, Alice. It's going to be interesting to see who takes it out.
And for the men's leader, it also
Yes.
goes to
There's
Marc
so
Antoine Olivier, representing France.
Amazing.
So
Yeah, there's
only-
so much still to play for.
Yeah.
It's
After today's results, there's only 150 points separating Marc-Antoine Olivier and Dario Varani, who's currently sitting in second. Marcelo Guidi back in third. He's still within striking distance, 500 points off.
And the women's
lead,
leader
so
goes to
it's all
Ana
to be
Marcela
battled
Cunha,
for.
representing Brazil.
yeah, and this is the thing where it's we see Ana Marcela Cunha, of course. Even finishing, I think it was 6th or 7th place today. Sorry if I've
Yeah.
got that wrong, but even finishing not as high as we're used to seeing her, still on top, still dominant. She really is one of the names of the sport. You cannot talk about the best of open water swimming and not mention her name.
When only 400 points separate herself and Leah Boy.
Thank
so
you, Mr. John
plenty
West,
to
and may
swim
all
for
leaders
as we get
come
ready
in
for
front,
the final
in front of the
stop
monitor to have a
of
group
the
photo.
World Cup Series in 2024, heading to Neom in Saudi Arabia. And, not only do we have that to look forward to, but the relays tomorrow as well.
Yes, certainly. There's a lot of exciting racing yet to happen. Oh, and I love this. I love that they've put the juniors with the sprint, and I love that they've put them all together with who got the caps. That's a really special moment, especially for the juniors. Like I'm saying, you really
And
have
once again,
to
congratulations
give
to
them,
all the World Cup leaders
that
and the medalists.
excitement and that fire to keep going. And of course, you want to do it anyway,
Yeah.
but it's moments like that you
And
remember
this is
and
the
think,
end of the
okay,
prize
I want to be
presentation
back in this
ceremony
moment
of
again. I
the
want
World
to be on the
Aquatics
podium. I
Open
want to be
Water
on the senior
Swimming World
podium.
Cup Hong Kong
And
Station
giving them a taste of that, I think, is
2024.
so valuable.
You are absolutely on the point there, Alice. And with that, of course, concludes the action here in Hong
With
Kong,
the
China
closing
for
of the
day
prize
one of
presentation
the
ceremony,
2024
our
World
shuttle
Aquatics
bus is now
Open Water
standing
World
by
Cup Series.
at the
Stop
entrance
4.
and waiting
Alice,
for
we
on you guys. So
heard
if you're
before
ready,
your highlight,
and then
Tommy
you
Raymond.
could get on the shuttle
I'm
bus. Thank you.
going to have to go with Lisa Powell, who did similar in the women's race, continuing to prove to be one of the best in the world.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, great swimming from both of them. And unfortunately, we won't get to see Lisa in action tomorrow, but hopefully we'll see Thomas Raymond in again. And it's going to be some good swimming in the relay. It's always exciting.
Yeah, we'll see you tomorrow as we call the action in the day 2 of the 2024 World Aquatics Open Water World Cup Series here in Hong Kong, China. My name is Will Rollo, joined today by Alice Deering. It has been our pleasure, and we'll speak soon.